Pass. Let some other people talk first.
All right, Soyato, go ahead and introduce yourself. Excellent. And we have the Sprout back with us by popular demand.
What's up? If you've watched any of these, you probably know who I am. I'm the Sprouticus. We'll figure out what's happening tonight.
Excellent. All right, and we have the Honorable Tiberius.
Oh, stop lying, first of all, okay? I am not honorable. I wish I could be, but I'm just not composed to that kind of stuff. Working on it.
You missed the first part. You said dishonorable.
Oh, okay. Well, then he was right on target. Anyway, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Tiberius D. I come on this panel every now and again, actually pretty much every time I have it. I enjoy it. Thank you very much for having me once again. Judging by some of the folks here, I'm kind of wondering if we're back to meme panels again, because I didn't smoke enough for that. Okay, so we'll see where this goes, but I'm very interested and excited to be here this evening.
This leads to Tiberius busting out the bottle.
And we have the Underlady of the Sticks, Cly, or Chai as we call her now.
Yeah, I'm the party crasher because whenever they invite me, I gotta tag along, so not awkwardly in the background, just doing dumb shit. Oh, your camera. Yeah, there we go. I was like, but I am here whenever Leafy decides to throw me in. Also, it's like you can come whenever, so that's me. Pop it in.
Excellent. And we have my man Vigilante down there. How you doing?
Good. I'm Vigilante. You can find me at Vigilante TV on both Twitch and Twitter. I do gaming, politics, talk about religion sometimes.
Excellent. And we have the Debate Queen. She will be joining us shortly. So I'm going to go ahead. Oh, and Jack, if you want to go ahead and get an intro.
Hi, I'm Jacander Painting. I do the producing here on Lethe and for Ty whenever he gets back out of the goddamn fields. I try to generally bring together smart people to have discussions on either ridiculous or serious shit. Generally, we tend to try and keep this less memey, but we did bring Sprout. He is a meme factory all onto himself, so we can expect some laughs nonetheless, but he knows where the line is.
Do I?
Does he now?
There's a line.
And with that, Duck, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey everybody, it's Duck here. I am your lawful evil meme lord, greaser from the Midwest. No, just here to see what's up with Japan. I hear they got some changes going. And yeah, if you want to see me on Twitter, it's fouled language, fouled_language with a W, because birds of a feather flock together.
Excellent. Whenever I see your photo, your profile pic, it reminds me of Michael Cera and Return of Twin Peaks.
Oh, I don't think
Have you seen his jacket?
Oh yeah, and
jacket's banging. All right, so we're going to get straight to the topics.
Am I not going to get an intro?
No.
Oh, you're here now. Okay.
I am here.
Excellent.
Just, yeah, camera's off for a minute while I get myself situated.
By all means, let us know who you are.
Hey, y'all, I'm the Debate Queen. Everyone can just call me Queen here. I do these lovely panels, and I talk about Islam and other religions. And I like to play Fortnite and kind of fuck around with that. And everyone can find me at the Debate Queen on all social media channels. And I am live on Twitch right now, too.
Most excellent. Thank you for being here. We're glad to have you.
Thank you for having me, friend.
So, Japan is changing the laws around sexual assault and age of consent. How should we view these changes through a critical lens in 2023? Is this significant or just to please the global landscape? Previously, Japan had one of the lowest age of consent among developed nations. However, a person who has had sex with a minor aged 13 to 15 will be punished only if the person is 5 years or more than the minor. Meanwhile, the statute of limitations or legal window for reporting rape will be extended from 15 years to 15 years from 10 years to give survivors more time to come forward. The changes also ban photo voyeurism, which includes upskirting and secret filming of sexual acts, among other things. It follows multiple rape acquittals in 2019 that caused national outcry and helped spur a nationwide flower demo campaign against sexual violence on the 11th day of every month since April 2019. Activists have gathered throughout Japan to demand justice and show solidarity with sexual assault survivors. So how do we feel about the changes that have come about in the age of consent, and why are these changes coming at the rate that they're coming? Go ahead and start with Jack.
Well, as we are looking at this current situation within Japan, you have to look at the cultural relevancy of this. Up until this law was changed, it was perfectly legal to antagonize and upskirt photo women in their culture. It was perfectly legal for you to put a camera up to somebody's window and video them having sex in their own home, etc. These laws are showing just how obsolete their cultural relevance is on the sexual landscape. Well, I will not go so far like Republicans do as to call them like deviants or anything like that. They have not kept up with the times. They have not protected their people by trying to maintain tradition, being so reticent to change because of fear of losing that cultural connection to their history, etc. That they have allowed thousands, if not tens of thousands of young women to be injured and traumatized by this situation. And now when they appease to the geopolitical landscape, they are literally giving us a band-aid. They are still making it where it has to, where if you are unconscious and cannot resist, you can actually not be viewed as having been raped because you didn't actually say no. Like, I mean, it's wild. This is 2023, and these laws read like something out of the 1950s. And this is supposedly a first world country.
Excellent. Jerked up.
Okay, I'm going to be honest. I thought this is what we were doing the first time. I am forming an opinion in real time.
Okay, let's wait a moment. I'll get
stuff.
back to you. So
Yeah.
I will get back to you after I get to Debate Queen. Soyado.
Oh, okay. Hey, great. So it's a start. You know, we still have a huge problem with chikan in Japan, and that is basically subway groping, not really prosecuted, and it's not technically intercourse. So what are they going to do? It's going to be same old, same old. Consent is not first and foremost in Japanese culture, unfortunately. And this law is basically the first step in the right direction. It's going to take several years for us to see progress here. Age of consent being 16, it's a bit low, but I'm not going to complain. It's out of my dating range anyways. So you if you want to like cry about it, if you want to say, please the global landscape, I don't know if that's like a shout out to the Andrew Tate crowd or what, but it is a step in the right direction.
Excellent. Sprout, how do you feel about this?
I think Japan, this is a long time coming. If you look at like the previous rules, that like 13 was the age of consent, which was far and beyond younger than all other nations that are first world nations. You basically, they were behind all other first world nations when it came to definitions of this. This is a first step. However, it seems to be a major step as they took several different steps here. As they raised the age from 13 to 16. They gave victims 15 years to come out about it. They changed the definition of rape to also include situations where the victim may be less likely to be able to consent. There's a lot of stuff they did here. I don't know, one small step for man, one large leap for Japan. Okay.
Excellent. Tiberius. I don't know how you can top that, but I think you got this.
He sets a high bar, and I don't think I am going to top it. But let me do two parts here. First part, context, right? We as Americans are going to have a lot of hardship when it comes to like understanding the context for Japan. It's a very different culture. On one side, it's very patriarchal, and I think this is actually a reflection of that and how they are moving. We can get to that in the open. But also, we are talking about a society that was one of the later ones to industrialize out of the quote-unquote developed nations. We are talking about an East Asian society that is not only patriarchal, but highly authoritative. There's a lot of these things that kind of just don't fit in our cultural context in the same way. Remind you, the average person had not even like touched an electronic appliance even in 1944 during the war. This is just one of those things that we don't really get Japan that much. Anyway, second part. What I'm interested here is that if we're gonna like kind of bridge the gap here, I think everyone agrees that raising it to 16 is probably a good idea. I think that most folks are interested in the changing of the upskirting. But the one I haven't seen, which I think is very like reminiscent of the conversation we've had here, is the definition of rape has been broadened to non-consensual sexual intercourse. From forcible sexual intercourse, right? And basically this means that you can have, or you could have had sex, but it be in a certain way where you do not feel that complied in a, I don't know how to word it. You just didn't have a consent, right? The problem is that we've had that conversation here in the United States, and this is the one thing that Me Too got pushed back on, is that pretty much every guy said, go fuck yourself on that one. So I will happily talk about that in the open.
Awesome. Vigilante, how do you feel about this?
Yeah, so I mean, I would say that this is definitely a step in the right direction. I do agree with the people that were pushing for this, that say that it just addressed part of the problems. But I mean, a lot of these laws are at least somewhat catching up to the rest of the world. And it's definitely not necessarily far enough, because I mean, even the rest of the world or catching up to America's laws, I mean, they're still relatively bad when it comes to age of consent and rape laws and stuff in a lot of countries, including here. So, I mean, them at least catching up is a good thing.
Excellent.
Oh,
We have
goes here too.
Rich.
We got a wild Rich appearing. I'll be damned.
I'm saying.
Oh man, Soyaddle.
He's
This was
upside down.
planned.
I had
Why
a
are you
question for
upside down?
Soyaddle, but I can't ask him because we're probably talking about a different topic. What's the
Yeah,
topic?
by the way,
The
Rich.
topic is, why are you upside down?
Yeah, like seriously.
I go Rich.
Oh, wait.
Gravity.
Hold on. I know why. It's also a better resolution camera.
Share with
I
us
should
your
use that.
secrets, wizard.
You were on your document cam. Okay.
That was my document. You know what? I should use my document camera because it looks better than my regular laptop camera. Because I just
awesome.
noticed, wow, that was really sharp.
You'll just have to use the flip feature because of the angle of the camera. There's a button.
I was showing a debate flow with it anyway. Because we're doing that Queensland like deep sea exploration thing. Anyway, what's going on? What's the topic now?
We're
Pretty
talking about
nuanced.
age of
Hold
consent.
on,
Go ahead.
I'll send you the articles real quick. So
Yeah, pretty nuanced thing. Japan has changed a few of their like sexual conduct laws.
Oh, right.
Okay, and then if you know about it, go for it. The other thing we'll get later. Of course, there's a second topic, but we literally just did everybody's intros, and then you popped in. So
Debate Queen needs hers.
Everybody,
We have not done my
True.
main intro yet.
Well, you know what?
Fair.
Let me go last in terms of the topic.
Oh, sorry, and Ducky, because we needed to go back to him. So you and Ducky will be
And-
last.
Yep. So
And
we're going
Clyde,
to
because she's
the
having
debate.
No,
queen.
skip me because I'm still fixing stuff.
Debate Queen, how do you feel about this?
I think this is a good thing overall. Just because this has been the first time this has been updated since 1907, so over 100 years, right? So we're bringing this into the 21st century, which I'm really glad for Japanese women to be able to have these new laws represented for these new times, basically. And I'll probably get more into it during everyone our opening and like stuff. So
Excellent. Well, I'm going to go ahead and open this up to the panel unless Cly is back and would like to give her 2 cents.
Nope.
God damn, you have
Okay,
the brain of a
Ducky.
goldfish. Ducky and Rich.
Yeah, I was about to, hold on, I was typing. Ducky, go ahead.
Okay, so after reading a couple things, and I'm going through this, it seems like Japan's like making some mistakes here, as far as rape goes, and like their consent stuff. It seems like they're making it really narrow, which can be really bad. And it seems like Japan's not the best at determining cases such as rape anyway. I was reading of one case, there was this like 15-year-old girl that was like pinned to a wall. And when it was taken to court, the court decided that the dude wasn't making it. They were saying that he wasn't making it too difficult for her to like stop the action. And so they ended up siding with him. So, I mean, it seems like the things that they're putting through sounds good, but I think that it's going to effectively make things worse for
They
situations
just
like
changed
that.
these laws, though. Like you can't go based off of what Japan decided based on prior laws and say this is
Still
Let
opening
him get
Ducky,
through it.
let-
You can attack him later.
wait.
Attack him
Wait,
later.
is it still opening statements?
It's still open.
Yeah, we need Ducky and Rich.
Oh shit. Okay, my bad.
So I think in the long run, in some of these aspects, it's going to make some things worse. I mean, yeah, there is good things that are coming out of it, like they raised the age of consent. We love that, and there are good things that are going to come from this. But I think people are focusing on the good things, and they're not seeing like the overshadow of the bad that might come out of this.
Okay. Thank you for that, Ducky.
Mm-hmm.
And Rich, how do you feel about this?
So, yeah, I've looked into it a little bit. I think at first blush, I'm open to having my mind changed on this or to be educated on this. But at first blush, it looks to me as if going from is it 13 to 16, of course, is a good step. There's a lot of like other, I don't want to say unique, but there are other things that are more common in Japan, like the upskirt shots and things like that, that are specifically being targeted in this bill, which is a positive thing. I think lengthening the statute of limitations from 10 years to 15 years is progress. These are all good things. I think we could all argue that none of it goes far enough, that they should go to 18, that there should be no statute of limitations, all of that. And I can see the argument that if it doesn't go too far, then it won't make things much better. I can see that argument. I'm struggling to see the it will make things worse scenario, but I'm sure someone will educate me on that.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and open this up. Go ahead and go on our attack spread.
Okay,
When's
So-
the UK going to get
So
on
you
board?
you can't go based off of like past laws and past rulings based on those laws and say that like, well, see, they did this time, so it's not really going to make much of a change when the laws have been completely changed.
Is that
Such
really
as
what I said?
such as what you're saying is they
No,
Japan-
Sprout. I want you to steal my position. Is that what you really believe I said?
What
You were
I
talking
want
about past. You were talking about past rulings and yes, you were talking about past rulings and what they did.
Yeah.
With past
What did I
rulings.
say about
These are
those
new
past
laws.
rulings, Sprout? What did I say about those past rulings?
The past ruling wasn't good. Is that the girl was didn't have enough fear essentially to be able to like.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, that's not what I said.
You couldn't
I said
even
that the court determined.
No, I just can't
that
talk right now. I
At the
just
end
can't
of
talk
the
right
day,
now.
you couldn't
Against
even
a
form your
wall
own
is not
opinion.
making it too difficult for her to resist.
Okay, so the new laws that were passed by the upper house of the Diet Japan's parliament on Friday, they explicitly outline 8 scenarios where it's difficult for a victim to form, express, or fulfill an intention not to consent to sexual intercourse. These include situations where the victim is intoxicated with alcohol or drugs, or subject to violence and threats, or is frightened and astonished. Another scenario appears to describe an abuse of power where the victim is worried of the consequences of refusal. So, to combat this, I would like for you to point out a time or a situation in which this is going to make the laws, is going to make what happens in Japan net worse than the laws they had prior to this.
Okay, sure. I'd love to. Okay, so what we're establishing here is that they already aren't very good with consent and like what really makes things like grape, right? So if they are really bad in these other areas, putting a band-aid over it isn't exactly going to make their decision making in these specific areas any better.
Were they really bad, or was it just legal?
I mean, they said that a man pinning a 15-year-old girl against a wall was not offering too much resistance to her to say no.
Again, this is before these laws, so it was just legal.
Okay.
Legally, there wasn't enough resistance.
I'm speaking from the privileged position of someone that lives in a country that lives on precedent. I'm sorry that I may be applying some of that to this, but since it did happen in the past, and it seems like decisions that they made have followed in suit, it might be possible that they may do it again. And if they do, this Band-Aid isn't really going to help with that.
Okay, I buy that logic. I do think that the redefining rape from forcible sexual intercourse to non-consensual sexual intercourse sort of solves the wall problem. But I agree with you that if you have motivated judges who are going to interpret it the way they want to anyway, then maybe they'll ignore this, right? But the part where it makes it worse is the part I'm struggling with. Like, how does it get worse because of this? Or let me put it this way: how would Japan be better off by not passing this law?
Only thing, the reason why the article itself said that it wasn't going to be a bad thing, and Ducky couldn't form his own opinion. He just essentially took the opinion of what the BBC said in this article, where it pretty much said that it's going to be bad, instead of forming his own opinion and looking at the research and trying to figure out what makes this law a bad law. Just saying.
Really? Okay, so that's 2 bad faith actors. Anyone else?
No. See,
I can get in on
You're
this.
calling me a bad faith actor?
No. See,
You're calling me a bad faith actor.
Come on, how old is your girlfriend?
Stop,
Tell us
stop.
right now. Tell us how old is your girlfriend? Let's go.
Stop.
I don't have a girlfriend.
No. But
That you're allowed to talk about.
Really? And he's questioning why I'm saying he's a bad faith actor?
That was a joke. That was a meme.
Really was a joke.
You've dealt with memes.
Was it really a joke?
So it's
Okay, Ducky,
I'm actually getting into an actual point.
Hold on,
So
let
there
me
were
just
critics-
interject before you make your point, just quick. At least one, like I'm pretty open to any argument that you're about to make about how it gets worse, right? Like I don't think I just haven't heard it yet. Like I heard the assertion that it'll get worse. I think it's possible that it might, because Japan does have a terrible track record on this. But I just want to know, like, what is the mechanism by which not passing this law, it creates a better world for Japan?
Like, I feel like I'm just genuinely not being listened to. I said that there were good things in the law, and I said that, like, it's a step in the right direction. I know everyone has like a 15-second memory right now, but I did say that it was a step in the right direction.
I just heard, but I also
said
heard
it can make things worse.
Make things worse is the critical.
Sprout, is it possible? Sprout, is it possible?
So he got his hands up.
Is it possible that a law made to help something could actually make it worse? I just want you to answer that for me.
Yes,
that is possible. It's entirely possible. I've seen laws that do that. However, this law does not. This law. Okay, can I? However, this please. Can I bring in the actual point? Thank you. However, this law is not one of those laws. If you look at the laws that make things worse, there's obviously glaring like holes in the law that you're like, oh, this is actually gonna be abused instead of actually used in the way it's wanted to be used. From what I'm seeing, the holes are not there. There's no obvious holes where people could just abuse the system. As a matter of fact, they're closing holes that critics have complained about for the past several laws that they've tried to change in regards to this, and they said it led to inconsistent court decisions, which is what you're speaking of. This law is to take care of the inconsistent court decisions and to make sure these inconsistent court decisions don't happen anymore.
Right. I'm
Wow,
getting
really?
bored.
So, Sprout, can you tell me what is consent? Because like this is
Let's
something
go.
that's still
Stop,
heavily
stop.
debated
Go
here
to
in
Soyana.
America.
Yeah.
Stop.
No,
Go ahead,
come on.
go
Stop with
ahead.
this back and
Yeah,
forth
yeah.
bullshit.
Let's-
This isn't a
let-
one-on-one.
Reel it in because I think the only person in their opening statement who had any pushback on this topic was Tiberius, and I want to like reframe Sprouticus's question to like, Ty, what's going on? What's going to be bad about this law?
Oh, okay. So the only issue that I raised up that could possibly be bad is the conversation that we had here in the United States when Me Too got super aggressive was that when you have the basically the non-consensual our agreement on what sex is, right? Is that what we saw that legally be interpreted to is that women would sleep with somebody and then the next day say that they would regret it and actually basically initiate a rape allegation. And that was a thing that we had to deal with, particularly in, I believe it was New York and New Jersey, there for about a year. Pretty much from everything that I've seen, pretty much obviously most conservative men, but even most moderate men said this is not going to fucking fly. And I can't remember who.
It's not
who
a
actually,
thing.
What do you mean it's not a thing?
Oh my God, it's not a fucking thing.
No, it fucking is a thing. Let's
It's
not
not
act like
a thing.
I don't know. I think that.
Do I have to go dig out the fucking court records on this?
As a woman, and
As a man, go fuck yourself. Don't play this shit.
And as a
Let her
woman,
finish, let her finish.
yeah, you go fuck yourself too, because that's some bullshit on men's fucking part. Okay, like that's some bullshit. No woman who is out there having consensual sex is not going to go the next day and be like, man, I feel really dirty about this. I regret it. What
Right,
am I
because
gonna go
humans
do?
can't be absolute shitbags at points.
I'm gonna go file a rape case.
Queen, I
That's
got a
not
question
a
for you.
thing.
I got
That
a
is a
question
thing.
for
That
you.
does happen.
How does a Japanese woman
it happened to
express
an
her
NFL.
consent?
It happened
Very
to an
wait,
NFL.
Sprout,
It happened to an NFL. It happened to an NFL prospect. The NFL prospect was going to be drafted into the NFL. I forget who exactly this was, but he was going to be drafted into the NFL. And then got hit with a rape charge, got convicted of the rape charge, and then like 10 years later, after he can't play in the NFL anymore, after he's far past his prime, the woman comes out and goes, "Oh yeah, sorry, kind of made that one up."
Just
Find me that article.
not just an NFL prospect. It also happened to Antonio Brown, if I remember correctly, as well.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
also
you
happened.
know
It also
what? The
it also
thing about
happened
that-
to a
the thing
couple
about
of
that- this is the
teenagers
thing
on an
about
NFL
it,
football
that-
team
if
because
that-
the girl was trying to get her ex-boyfriend to be jealous about her, so she claimed that they raped her so that way he'd feel bad.
Again, if
it
y'all
ended
can
up
read,
not
if
working.
y'all can,
It
if
ended up
y'all
not
can find me
working,
these
and then she came
cases,
out and said,
if y'all
I
can
have
find
it.
me these cases,
I have it.
you
Brian
know,
Banks.
if someone wants to DM me on Twitch,
I got it.
because I can't do it on Discord because it's being
I'll DM you
used
on
right
Twitch.
now.
Can you comment on
So
Lise?
if you want to DM, that's fine.
Yeah,
I can
you
read
comment
the
on
DMs.
Lise? Can you comment on Lise so that way I can DM you?
"No, she's
Oh.
saying that she can't do the DMs through Discord."
No, I'm gonna DM her on Twitch.
yeah,
Can you
yeah,
comment on Lise?
yeah.
Yeah, she can just
Yeah. Put it in late thing, and then I can try to copy and paste it.
There you go. That's an article from the Daily News. Brian Banks spent 5 years in prison after being falsely
The
accused of
Daily
rape.
News.
I'm sorry. Do you want me to? I can pull another one
NY
up. Would you
Daily
like to?
News.
Oh, how dare
it was the
Sprout,
first
for
one-
using the Daily News.
Here, I'll.
Hey, listen.
Here,
As
you know what?
as a former debater, as a former policy debater, I can tell you everything matters.
You know what? NBC Los Angeles. Article about Brian Banks. Football player imprisoned on false rape charges makes NFL debut. Brian Banks' dream of playing an NFL game came true Thursday night when he walked through the huddle with the Atlanta Falcons, fourth quarter preseason game. Recruited star at Long Beach High School a decade ago. He's talking about how awesome it was to play in high school and college.
Honestly,
Banks' journey to the Thursday's NFL debut was made possible by a hidden Banks' jersey to the Thursday's NFL debut was made possible by a hidden camera confession from his accuser, who sent Banks a Facebook friend request after his release from prison. The accuser told Banks she wanted to let bygones be bygones.
Listen, all of that did not say anything about like what y'all essentially said from what I'm hearing, and I may be wrong, right? Because there's just a lot going on right now.
So, Adel, I see your hand right
Right.
after the debate queen gets finished. Okay, are you done?
I didn't see anything where it says like it sounds like women were meeting
How
up
are you
with
gonna
them on
tell
the
us
side. It
Come
doesn't
post
really
things in your Twitch
sound
chat that is the followers only. Like, what is this?
Huh? It's followers
Right,
only.
right.
Oh yeah, because listen, I'm an Nabiki woman. Okay, I gotta protect myself on some standard and some levels. You feel me?
No.
Okay, so Adel,
So
go ahead.
speaking of standards, Sprouticus, never change. Read news articles during a debate. Thank you so much. I missed you, buddy. Dairy Queen,
Not a problem.
you wanna tell me, how does a Japanese woman express her consent? And let's pause for a bit. Okay, any
Do you want me to tell you
of
that,
culture, gentlemen of culture out there, how does a Japanese woman express her consent to sex, to intercourse?
I don't know how a Japanese woman would do it, but because I don't live in Japan, I don't know the cultural aspects of Japan.
There's a very clear signal, and that is, would you like to take a shower?
Oh.
Yeah.
Huh.
Men of culture, welcome to the world. This is like, basically, this is the signal, like, we want to get down and dirty, so we're going to take a shower together, separate, whatever. This is the signal. So maybe it's easier than we thought to like have okay, yes, there was consent beforehand, but then what happens if like you go too far, like she's not into the back door or something like that? I mean, so Thai does have a little bit of a case, but I think that Japan, there's maybe a little bit of cut and dry for normative, like vanilla sex. There's a pretty clear like verbal contract with a chain of evidence that could be pretty favorable to the men's case.
So no, yeah, I 100% get that. I think this law doesn't go far enough. However, I think it's a far cry away from getting worse. For making Japan worse for having these sets of laws, or anything becoming worse for having these sets of laws. The only ground I might give is to Tiberius's point, but even then I don't think that that's a net. I don't think that's a net bad. I think that this law becoming law of the land of Japan is going to result in a net good because of the amount of good that's going to come from the law, then the amount of bad. Does the bad still need to be addressed? Yes. Is it a net bad? No, it's a net good.
Well, I'm glad that you came over to my point, Sprout. Glad to see
That's
you
not
over
your
there.
point. You were saying it's going to make it worse.
It is exactly. Oh my God!
You literally said it was going to make it worse. If you would like to, you'd be more careful with your
You
words.
said that there's things in there that could make it worse.
The whole
You
panel,
said the exact same thing.
The whole panel wouldn't attack you if you'd be more careful with your words.
You just said verbatim exactly what I said.
I did not attack Duck. I want that record corrected, Sprouticus.
The whole panel minus Soyaddle wouldn't attack you if you'd be more careful with your words.
I haven't said it. I haven't attacked anyone. I just want to point that out.
Okay, yeah, minus the people who said they don't attack anybody. Cool. All right.
All right, so I want to get back to
Okay, Rich, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to get back to Ty's point because he's talking about situations. I agree with Ty that there are situations because, I mean, there are like zillions of accusations out there. Some of them can be false. The one I'm thinking of is the Duke lacrosse team allegation, which was very famous, the consequences of which were rather dire. There was an accuser of President Biden, who virtually nobody believes except for motivated reasons, but it's a false accusation of rape. But I don't see the connection between these changes in the law and those things like, I guess it's the change between like violent forcing versus non-consent. Is that what you mean? Like that particular change, Ty? Is that what it is?
Sorry, I was doing a little research on the side. Can you make that last
Oh,
statement?
yeah, that's okay. So I'm even though I agree with you that false accusations can happen, I think they're rare, but I think they can happen. The Duke lacrosse team, for instance, is what came to my mind. But I'm not seeing how this particular law makes that particularly likely, except for the fact that the requirement of violence is replaced with a requirement of consent. Is that the part that you're referring to?
Maybe Maybe. I'll put it this way.
Okay.
If I'm going to just do the calculus in my head of like how likely this is to get worse, probably not very, like under less than 10%, because we are still dealing with a very patriarchal society that will probably favor the man, even if there's some kind of allegation, right? So I'll just openly concede the ground on that. What is the conversation that can be is certain forms of sex just non-consensual? And in terms of, and I know that sounds weird, but it's like, all right, can somebody actually have sexual regret? It's been a conversation. It's largely died, but I literally can find, I can find a handful of them just looking online for not even 5 minutes. It's not hard. It's probably not that common, but it is real.
I mean, I think the standard can sometimes go like pretty far. Like, for instance, like Julian Assange was accused of rape because he wasn't wearing a condom, and one of the girls thought that he was. There was also another situation where, okay, there's that famous one on Better Call Saul, right, where somebody sleeps with him because they think that he's Kevin Costner, right? And so that's technically what you call rape by deception, right, where you're pretending to be somebody that you're not. But I don't think any of this applies. Like, that's the kind of stuff where, yeah, you can say some laws sometimes like go too far in a certain direction. But It doesn't seem to me that anything, at least not anything I see from this article or other articles I've looked up, like go anywhere near like that zone where there's some overreach.
Right. And like, I don't disagree with that. Like the point that I made was moreover, it's like, all right, legalistically, I can see where X would happen, right? I didn't say X would happen, but I can see where it would, or where it could. So I apologize for getting really caught up on that one, but I otherwise we're all going to agree this is just a
You're
step
giving
in the
it
right
some
direction.
clash.
A little bit, like seriously, like are we not all supposed to agree this is a good thing and in a step in the right direction?
Well, I think we also have some clash with Ducky, right? Because I think what he said when he said that this might might make things worse, I think he meant something very different than when you said it, right? Because I think you're saying it might be worse for men, and I think for Ducky, he's saying it might be worse for women.
I mean, that's possible. I wasn't here for his statement. I had to walk away for a minute.
Right.
So I know
Sure.
like he was getting grilled on that one. Sorry, dude. I wish that wasn't the case.
Well, I think we might have misinterpreted some of what he was saying. I'd like to hear the
I mean, especially since Sprout ended up with the exact same position at the end of his whole rant.
It's not the exact same position. When you rephrase it, you're like, no. You know what? I actually agree with you. You said it better.
We can be good faith and allow people.
That is not what I said.
I think we can be good faith and allow people to restate and just take them on their word of what they meant. I think we can do that. Can't we?
Sounds good.
Yep.
All right.
So, one of the things that I'm seeing with this is like they do add like coercion and things into the category of rape in the law, but based off of what we're hearing about like Japanese society, I don't think that that's actually going to get applied, which becomes more of a bigger problem. Like they might actually be putting a lot of these things into law, which is good, but with the fact of their society and how they just kind of ignore rape, there's certain types of rape, like coercive rape, that are just going to get fucking ignored.
I tend to agree. When I was doing research for this, I went like to the next step, like, okay, not just rape, but sexual assault. What are the Japanese laws against sexual assault? And there's actually the term that I referred to in my opening called chikan, which is basically being groped on a train. And or it's like Google translates as pervert.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's has the literal words have something to do with a train. And
That's why there's women-only trains.
Base,
But
I
they
guess.
also this law also addresses that though. The charge also, I mean, somewhat. The charge also bans photo voyeurism, which includes upskirting and secret filming of sexual acts, among other things.
Right.
Okay,
But-
I'm gonna
but the
post
actual
an
acts-
article in
Right,
Leafs,
groping's still a thing, but
chat?
it still took a step in that
Post that.
direction, right? So
Oh, hey, debate
so that
queen,
way
I
everyone
DM'd
can
you that
read
article
what the
on
differences
Discord.
are based on Japanese culture. So if everyone wants to go
Which
click
chat
on
is
that
it?
link, it's
It's in the
in
Discord.
Leafs.
In Leafs.
Okay.
No, I'm putting it. I'm
I'm sorry,
putting
the
it in.
Twitch chat.
In the
Yeah,
Twitch
it's on
chat.
Twitch
Okay.
chat. Sorry,
Gotcha.
Twitch chat.
That's okay.
My bad.
Yeah,
So use of violence,
go
intimidation,
inside
alcohol, drugs, economic or social status are among the factors that will be considered when determining whether an act is consensual. Cases in which the victim has a mental or physical disorder can also be deemed non-consensual. That's very progressive of them. I like that.
But it's all
Yeah.
it's only intercourse. It's nothing to do with other forms of sexual assault.
Which is why we're kind of trying to narrow down if this was done just to allay the protests that were going on and look better in an international sphere, or for the actual greater good of the country itself. And from what you're saying, it doesn't seem to go far enough to address those issues.
I can see that, I'm not going to make perfect the enemy of good, so this is a good first step. I would like to see, something about sexual assault in Japanese culture, like a genuine reform of this. The reason that you have women-only trains needs to be
I
resolved.
agree. I want to continue to see progress. However, like when Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves, he didn't do enough. He didn't do it well. Like there's obvious shortcomings to what he did, because change has to come in a incremental fashion. You can't just like slap down change and be like, oh well, look, today it's going to be completely different. Like, so change has to come in an incremental fashion. I applaud Japan for taking the first increment, for taking that first step. This seems like a fairly big step for the first step, but taking that first step. I want to continue to see progress. And really that's where this is going to lay out, right? If Japan stops making progress, then we figure out they did this just for the national, like, the way they're seen on the national stage and international stage and stuff like that. But if they continue to make progress, you're going to see that the Japanese government is actually caring about its citizens and actually trying to fix the problem that they have.
I think at this point it's a little bit more of less of that if they continue to make progress, and more of if they actually end up enforcing these laws.
Yeah, enforcement's going to be key. Of course, that's always the case.
Yeah.
It may rely on intergenerational and attitudinal changes between people who make decisions, prosecutors, judges, other like officials who are involved, especially like reporters, like people who not like newspaper reporters, but people who report on these things. Like in America, we have mandated reporters, like teachers, for instance, are mandated reporters. I don't know if there is a role, and it would be great to have Sensei in here, because he could tell us what his duties are as a teacher in Japan, and what he's can report and what he's mandated to report, or maybe even what he's barred from reporting. Like it could be that his school likes to keep things quiet. I don't know, but he would be like an expert on a lot of this.
Yeah, and I think going back to the point that I got talked over like 20 minutes ago, like the reason that this can be made worse beyond the stuff that Ty was talking about, which I wasn't even actually considering. When you over finite the wording within laws, you make it extremely difficult to prosecute. Period. Like the person can get arrested, but prosecution goes out the window. I will use the example of the rest of their justice system in Japan. It is a 92% likelihood if you commit a crime, you will be caught and convicted. If in Japan on sexual assault allegations, you have a 42% likelihood of being caught and convicted. I do not see that the measures that they have put in place are going to change any of this disparity. Because what they have done is made these laws highly finite while they make the rest of their legal system extremely robust.
Man,
But when I look at
something could go wrong with the way that they implemented.
Yeah, I was trying to back you up 20 minutes ago. I got talked over.
Ducky's so fucking based.
But when I look at the laws as written now, because they give certain quotes about how like for instance how rape was defined then and how it's defined now, I agree that it's finite, but it was also extremely finite before. So the big change being violence was taken out, so violence is no longer required. It's been replaced by consent. Consent is finite too, and defining consent is going to be a difficult thing in Japan, especially where they have maybe a not so progressive view of consent. But the change from the word violent to consent, those are both finite worlds, right? But
I agreed with all that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So
Yeah,
I mean,
they are being to the point where I am dubious. I'm not saying it's going to make everything worse. I'm not saying, just like I don't think Ducky was. I think a vast majority of this is we see the dangers because we have seen not only, well, I have doing research into this, but like Japanese law, but here in America law, when we overly finite certain definitions, it leads to a complete misapplication of said law.
Yeah, I agree. Or I should say, it makes it. I think the way you said it first was better. It makes it
More likely.
less certain that you'll get a prosecution, right? Because if you have to jump through certain hoops to meet certain definitions, then a prosecutor is going to have like more difficulty proving a case, right?
Precisely.
In America, that's done because defendants are supposed to have advantages. Like you're not supposed to be able to prove something unless it's beyond a reasonable doubt or whatever. So you have to have like sort of clear thresholds. In Japan, I'm not sure that's the reason for the finitude. Like, so I can see like why you would be skeptical.
I'm not sitting here going like, oh my God, it's too little. I mean, I personally believe it's too little, but that is
no, it's too
based on
little.
my progressive ideology, as opposed to I am glad they are making any change after 126 years. Or 116 years, sorry, my bad.
Yeah.
Way too long to like keep laws in effect, and I think that also speaks to like American culture as well, that we need to change and update laws as well and bring them into the 21st century, but we don't. So I'm glad that this is gonna have an effect to women who have been sexually assaulted. And I think that because it's a new law, as in all new laws, they're not perfect, right? No law is perfect. No government is perfect, right? I think that we have to see how this will turn out in the next few years and see how these cases will be updated and brought out now that we are able to have like these laws back up these cases and back up these young women who have been sexually assaulted.
Yeah, and honestly, I almost wish we had somebody like Pisco, or even as much as I dislike the Blacktoid in here, because I think they would be addressing the fact that we would need to also be applying this at the legal school level for prosecutors and the way that they view these cases, etc. Like this is a multifaceted change that is necessary, and from a lawyer's perspective, you're also going to have to change the way this is educated on.
Speaking of Lactoid, I'm petitioning this wonderful panel to invite Lactoid more often. I need some of his wonderfulness.
I've invited him. He said Wednesdays are nearly impossible for him.
Nah, well, he
So-
used to be the weekends for him.
But
Jack,
this is
can
what I
you
was.
turn
This
up
is what I
your
was talking
mic
about.
a little bit.
Vivian said
sorry about
she
that.
had to go to the bathroom.
Okay. I
This
just
is
want to
what
hear
I was
you.
talking about, that Japan has like a bigger problem, and I think that even though that this is a big step forward for them, it's not going to be a good enough fix to fix what the bigger problem is.
Yeah, I agree with that.
It's almost like change can't happen instantly.
No, incremental change. Like I was actually.
I think Japan proved that it can happen instantly, right after World War II. They became
I'm
I'm
sorry. I'm sorry. Change can't happen instantly unless two cities get glassed in your country, and you're like, you know what? Maybe we shouldn't do that.
Oh
Just
man,
say
yo,
Japan's
I know
a
what
bad
we need to do to
example
fix
for-
this.
Feminists get the bomb.
Can we get a bomb that only destroys men? Like it's got some unique DNA code in it?
Yeah,
Here
hold
for
on,
that.
viral.
Yes.
that idea.
Yes, please, please.
Do not.
Oh,
do
the
not
sexism
give
comes
people
out.
that idea.
Oh, yeah. So now
Like,
we
I know,
know,
right?
that
Like,
Nick Queen is
it-
sexist.
That
I
sounds
know,
like
right?
the plot
Like,
of a
it's like-
very good sci-fi
this,
movie.
oh, fuck.
It literally is. There's an episode of Sliders on that.
Oh,
Yes, there
okay.
is.
Oh, there you
If
go.
you haven't, anybody here who has
went-
not watched Sliders, I highly recommend you watch the show until the last season. Ignore
No,
the
I was
last-
gonna say
it-
season
Hey,
up to season
Viv.
3. Finish the. Oh, wow.
I mean,
it went from- it went from,
one of our very few people who are allowed to jump into clothes without being invited. Viv, I am so glad you're here.
And also very well spoken on topics like
Wingers
this.
for
invited her.
Clyde, because Clyde cannot truly be
Clyde.
here, but is here
Everybody-
in spirit. We have Vivian.
Well, you gotta let me
Everybody
know
has
when you
different
invite
fucking
people, Clyde.
volumes, man.
Oh, Letha, she was in the chat and
we
had
were
like a
talking
really
in the
good
Dis-
stat.
We were talking in the Twitch.
We just want to yell at each other.
Oh, so when talking about crime stats in Japan, Japan has a 99.9% conviction rate. And if that sounds fucking insane to any of you, that's because it is. Because America's justice system is completely fucked. If you're charged with a crime, you will almost certainly be convicted of that crime, regardless of whether you did it or not, right?
I mean,
And if
unless
they
it's
don't
rape.
think they can get a conviction, or if they're even slightly worried that they're not going to get a conviction, they won't charge, right? Because they take great pride in that 99.9% conviction rate. When talking about crimes of a sexual nature in Japan, Japan has a significant fucking issue with just ignoring these things, right? Japan's the only country that I know of that has a specific word for sexual assault that takes place on a train, right? Like it's a well-known part of their culture, and there are like significant efforts to try and change things. But essentially what I'm saying is that like any stats that you give around sexual assault and criminal convictions in Japan are entirely unreliable, unrepresentative of like what the actual situation is on the ground, and whether or not certain policies are having a positive or negative effect. It's really, really difficult to tell from them. The last thing I would say is like, where are you getting your figures? Because you said something like, if you commit a crime, there's like a 40-something% chance that you're caught. I don't
42%,
know.
and that was given by the FBI's stats from working with the Japanese government.
Right, but I don't. So
I mean, it could be wrong.
maybe
I'm not
maybe
arguing
it's
that.
maybe it's the way you're wording it, right? But I don't understand how you could get that stat unless what you're saying is 40-something% of crimes that are reported,
Yes.
they catch
Yes.
somebody.
Yes,
Right,
that is yeah, and then maybe it was because I was slightly after the fact, etc. Because I was
So that would be a
catching up.
charging rate, not a conviction rate.
No, that was conviction.
And it's
and
also a
charging
conviction rate because the
leading to,
conviction
yeah.
rate is 99.9%. So the charge rate will be basically the same as the
Right.
conviction.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Exactly.
And this was specifically
And
from
so
the
few
stuff
sexual
that they
assault-
Or
Yeah,
usually,
that's
I just mean
anyway.
the ratio of charge to convict. Right. So, like,
Yeah.
of the people who are charged, what percentage are convicted? Then you would get a real.
Oh, 99.9%.
So 40.
That's for other crimes.
41.9
For sexual
That's
crimes, I mean.
As for all crimes. Or that's an average. across all
Anything
crimes.
that if they prosecute, you can get arrested for something and not prosecuted. That is
Right.
different.
That's why I
That is
said.
a different-
That's why I said. That's why I said
Yeah.
charged.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And that's why I only went by the stats that said charged, and I went by the FBI stats from when they worked with the Japanese government back in the 90s and early 2000s.
I'm interested in hearing, how did the UK reform this issue of taking rape going from forcible intercourse only to intercourse without consent? Is that something that's finally been completed in the UK, or is it still backwards?
I couldn't tell you offhand.
Right.
The one thing I know about the UK's rape laws is that you gotta have a penis to commit rape in the UK. Rape is defined as penetration with a penis, basically. A woman can be charged with rape if she is part of the crime of rape, right? If she enables it by like holding somebody down for somebody else, she can be charged with rape. But only if somebody's penetrated by a penis can it be called rape in the UK legally, right? Obviously, everybody societally understands that.
So charge men are
far more than that.
trans men are immune from the charge then.
So Cardi B is safe in the UK.
Trans men,
Well, no,
trans
no,
men
no.
can rape.
Well,
couldn't
bottom surgery.
commit
Yeah.
legal rape. by
Well, if they have
themselves.
right, if they have the right parts, of course.
Okay, Viv, what about foreign object? Because that is something we have specific laws for here.
Yeah, that would be
well.
like I think sexual assault with a foreign object or something.
Yeah,
I think
because we
that's what
do.
it's called.
We
Awesome.
actually kind of do the same thing here because, at least in my personal opinion, it is the puritanical view of the Christians and Christians that wrote the laws that kind of epitomize their views, and it's not necessarily wrong for that time period. But now in modern days, we definitely need to fucking change the wordings of these laws.
Well, one of the big reasons this has caused a huge fucking problem here in the UK is because it's a come on to a fucking panel immediately, start talking trans shit. Whatever. We went there.
Sorry, I brought it up.
One of the big problems that it's caused in the UK is it's allowed certain conspiracy theorists to say that there are significantly more trans women in women's prisons than there are, because there are a lot of women, there are a number of women who are in prison for the crime of rape, who transphobic campaigners say are definitely trans women because you can't rape without a penis, right? But obviously, as I said before, you can be charged with rape if you're like holding somebody down or whatever for the other person with a penis to rape them, then you get charged with rape. But it's it's bled into our social discourse in a really nasty fucking way. And those laws, I think, need to be clarified and expanded, because this is not what the general public recognizes as the crime of rape. If somebody walks up behind you and like shoves a fucking dildo up your ass, I think a lot of people would suddenly would recognize that as rape, right? Like, yeah. Or like fingers or anything, like forced sexual intercourse is rape. Socially, that's what we understand it to be, but legally,
it becomes ridiculously nuanced. Yes, because
it's not nuanced. It's just restrictive to the point of absurdity. It's a hangover from the olden days of like lesbians didn't used to be a thing in the UK. Okay, Queen Victoria was like famous for saying she didn't believe that lesbians did that, like lesbians existed. Women don't do that sort of thing. Which
Russia still says that.
Wait, what? Really? Okay, that was a quote I didn't know. Holy shit!
She was low-key a lesbian. JK.
That was Queen Victoria, so that was like 1800s. But
yeah, I'm just like, I didn't know that quote. That's amazing. That's wild.
But yeah, so it's fucking fuck. What was my point? Yeah, basically it's like a hangover from that sort of archaic period of just like sex is a thing that a man does to a woman, right? Rather than the more nuanced view of sex, I suppose we have today.
Well, the reason I said
person with a person, you would hope, but rape would be person to a person for sure.
Yeah, well, I was, and the reason I said nuance is we have literally created multiple lattices of laws just to reinforce that point that sex is only done by, or sex or rape is only done by a man.
Yeah, and I think I used the word "to" there very specifically as well, because it's like women were never supposed to be like active. Women weren't thought of as active participants seeking sex. Women's sexual pleasure was never like considered, right? Like, sex is something that is done to women by men, not something that people do with each other. Sorry, I'm sure we've gone miles off topic now.
So then what we're talking about is, I think maybe what the consensus is that when it comes to rape, this law seems to do a lot of good things, but it's not addressing sexual assault. It's not addressing anything outside of like that restrictive scope of what rape is.
But should we not pass something on the basis of it doesn't cover all evils? Because, like, I don't think any
of us said we shouldn't pass it.
Yeah, it sounds like we all agree it should be passed.
Limitations of it. Yeah. That's all. By the way, Viv, because you know more about this than the rest of us here. What is the suspected ratio between forcible rape and just like other forms of sexual assault in America or in Japan. In America, we have roughly a 50-50 split from what I've seen in the stats.
I'm not going to pretend I know off the top of my head.
Okay.
I'd have to look it up.
Hey, I had to look it up myself for America, so that's why I was asking.
But again, like I said earlier, it's just like it's really difficult to tell. I think the best way to get figures on sexual crimes in Japan is to look at organizations that are tracking it rather than to look at official government figures and charging rates and so on. Yeah. But even then it's really difficult because most people just do not report their rape or speak to anybody about it.
That's true here still to this day.
Social shit. It is true and it isn't true in America. It's true in a lot of countries. I'm just saying, like Japan has a specific problem with it, where I think that the silence is greater than it would be in the United States, for example. That's something that's like slowly changing, but it's not something that's got good enough that I would say they're on par with America. So I couldn't tell you.
I can tell you that I didn't report my sexual assault. So I totally get that because it's just something I didn't think that people would necessarily believe. I even told my dad that I was sexually assaulted, and he was like, well, I don't believe you because if it was like really as bad as you say, you would be crying. And like, because apparently my aunt was sexually assaulted. Like she was raped forcibly and like it was a whole thing. Apparently, I don't know like all the details, but that's the gist that I got from it. But it's just like, yeah, okay, like it wasn't as bad as your aunt, so it obviously didn't happen to you. So like that's all stuff that fucking women have to deal with like all the fucking time. Like the shit fucking sucks,
I've been sexually assaulted several times in my life, and I've never reported it to anybody. And I think it's something that happens to men a lot more than we think as well, because men are told that
it does.
oh well, you should just be happy if a girl comes up and grabs your ass, right? Like, but that happens especially when you're a young guy and you're in a bar or whatever with some older women. That shit happens quite often to dudes. I've seen it a lot.
And for like the times that it happens, like a dude getting raped by a chick, can you imagine being a guy and try to explain to everyone, like, well, wouldn't you just like it? Wouldn't you just enjoy it?
Hey, there's someone here that could tell you about that.
Well, I was trying to get in there.
No, I was opening it for you because,
as somebody who is that is a guy that has been raped, it is not an easy thing to talk about because of the way that our society looks at it, and especially if it's like spousal rape and stuff like that. So like when you get into coercion, which is what the situation I'm talking about specifically was, it's oftentimes just ignored in America. And
I mean, go ahead.
I was gonna say, and the bar to actually get it like prosecuted for men is like super fucking high.
Oh yeah, I was about to say,
to the point where like
female rape in this country. Look at the stats on the male prosecution rates. It's ridiculous. It's in the single digit percentile.
I was on a panel where we were talking about like I forget how it came up, but we're talking about men getting abused. I'm like, yeah, I've been abused by significant others before, physically, mentally, and otherwise. Even the idea of a woman physically abusing a man by hitting him is extremely looked down upon in America. So like we are several like not to make it worse, but we're several steps away from like recognizing that raping men is an actual thing, because we have to first realize that abusing men is an actual thing.
Yeah. And it's because in order to acknowledge these things, it's going to take a lot of societal change on a social level. And it's stuff that some people are pushing for, but it's stuff that's very easily accepted by a lot of people who haven't actually experienced it.
And the fact that if you defend yourself in these situations, you're seen as the abuser by the rest of the world.
Yep.
True.
That is absolutely the truth.
So much so. So
no,
much
this
so.
we literally have.
So much so much so that the military teaches that, at least the units that I was in the army taught me that if I was in a physical situation at home to where my significant other, your wife, was being physical, to leave the place, like to just leave the place of where you're at and go somewhere else until things
Not the
calm down.
Marines.
Because one, you don't want false accusations that you did something, and if you weren't there, that it's hard to prove you did something. And two, you don't want to be pushed to a point emotionally to where you feel like you have to fight back, end up fighting back, and then get accusations because you fought back.
Yep.
And the root of all these problems, the rape culture in the United States and the United Kingdom, of which women are undoubtedly the greater victims, in terms of pure numbers, but men simply just do not report or get their assaults taken seriously at all. It's the same. It's the same fucking toxic ass culture, right? It's the same, like.
Well,
I'm gonna say toxic masculinity. All right.
Well,
I'm gonna.
I imagine
say
since
it.
your government defines rape as being
It's
penetrated like
patriarchy,
penis,
it's toxic
like, they probably
masculinity.
laugh off any dude that said they got raped by a woman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When it comes to like what we're talking about, like with men being able to get raped, I would say the UK is significantly worse, because of how you guys define rape. I mean,
Well,
at least in America, we have the ability to report. It's just fucking ignored.
Even
Yeah.
then, though,
Yeah,
even then, when a teacher has sex with when a female teacher has sex with a male student, when the news reports it, they don't even ever include the word rape. They're like, "Oh, teacher caught having sex with student." I'm like, I think that's an actual crime, and I think you left out the words to that crime
Statutory rape.
intentionally.
Also, adults are like, you should like that. Like,
Yeah,
isn't that great?
adults
I wish
are
that
like,
happened to me in school.
adults are like, "Way to go, kid."
Sometimes it's not a crime because there are states where the statute of limitations.
Not when you hold a
the
position of authority.
the age. No, that doesn't make it a crime. It makes it a fireable offense.
It depends.
But it's the
on the state.
it's the minority that makes it.
Is that not a power dynamic?
No, it doesn't matter. There are some states where it does not matter, which is absolutely
there is over 10 states that do not recognize power dynamic rape.
Let me guess, it's ours, isn't it?
No, actually, there's a couple that are Democratic, but it's just because they have created quote unquote other laws to go around it. They just don't call it rape. They call it forcible coercion and all kinds of other shit. Like this is what I said. This is what I was saying to Viv. We have created multiple lattices of legal frameworks.
I mean, there are instances of
shit to not call it that thing.
There are instances of like adult teachers having sex with 16-year-old students, where 16 is the age of consent, and so they got fired for like abusing their power, whatever. But that's pretty much all that happened to them. And there are multiple states where that's still the case. I mean, they keep fighting for it. And
this is why we should just all federally legalize the age of consent to be 18. Just like we should all legalize the ability to be married at 18. You should not be married under the age of 18. You do not have the faculties to essentially consent to that fact.
Why
Okay.
So I'm gonna
If
disagree
you
with
can
this.
vote, if
Who's
you
about to
can
get
vote,
wild?
if you can listen, if you can vote, if you can join the military, if you can go legally buy porn, and in some states, if you can go buy weed, okay, but you can't. You have to have and you can't in order for you to get married, you have to have a parent's consent or any of that bullshit. That's not right. 18. If you can do all those things at 18, then
parents can
I'm
being able to deny emergency services to their kids, so they can tell paramedics to stop doing chest compressions, and that's why I'm iffy on broad sweeping claims in as federal law, but
I'm gonna slightly disagree. I'm gonna slightly disagree with that though, because there is some.
God, Feudivs is here.
Okay, let me. I
One
wanna hear
at a
what-
time,
what-
people,
how-
please,
how-
please.
And child marriage, I want to know.
So I'm gonna slightly disagree with this because there is some serious things that we're missing here, and to just say 18 is the age of consent, no room for consideration of anything else. That means you would have to completely get rid of the Romeo and Juliet law, which means that if you're 17 years old and you're dating another 17-year-old, but then you turn 18 first, congratulations, now it's a felony. Like no, there needs to be some room for consideration of at least Romeo and Juliet.
I don't think anybody said that, Sprout.
Yeah.
I believe
think that-
Debate Queen
I
just
think-
said 18 flat cut.
I think listen, I think
But that
18,
doesn't take it that
17,
away.
that's fine. But I'm saying like if you are like you are like 19, okay, and then you have to like you want to go marry a 16-year-old, it's okay in some states for you to go do that.
Or
That
even like
shit is
30-year-olds.
Right, exactly. Or 30-year-olds marrying 16-year-olds. That's fucking disgusting.
Debate
That
Queen.
should
Yeah.
not be
Hey,
okay.
Debate Queen, can I date an 18-year-old? Is that okay?
I mean,
How
it's
old
still
are you?
disgusting. I'm not gonna
I'm
lie, that's
pretty old.
fucking disgusting. The power dynamics is like fucking disgusting.
All right.
But you are, if two people are consenting adults, go on right ahead.
Half plus 7.
Are you
All
gonna?
right.
Are 18-year-olds your
person of your
type? Though?
word.
You gonna want to
Are we
babysit?
speaking in favor
Right,
of a
right,
sliding
right.
scale for relationships and dating?
Half plus
sex?
7 is pretty recognized in many places around the world.
Yeah, I'm
not talking about in terms of law.
+7.
I'm not
I
talking about in
agree with
terms
half
of
plus
law.
7.
At this point, I'm talking about in terms of appropriateness.
In
But,
terms of internet culture, yeah, no, you're right. The internet is a culture.
No, I grew up knowing about half plus 7. Like I guess I was on the internet even in the 70s. But
I don't even understand half plus
Yeah.
7, but
Take your age,
half your
divide
age
it,
plus
divide
7.
it in 2 and add 7.
Half your age plus
Oh,
7 is
Lord.
an appropriate relationship.
So I'm
It's-
26.
It works at
I'm
any
26. 26 divided by 2 is 13 plus 7, 20. 20 is the youngest age I'd be able to date.
Okay, I mean, that sounds dumb. I think you could probably date a 19-year-old at 26. I've met some pretty fucking immature 26-year-olds.
it's a rule of thumb, okay? It's not like an iron rule. We're not talking about a law. We're just talking about a rule of thumb.
Thank God.
Yeah, because don't we have to agree as like a society to make these laws? Like we gotta
just
start
saying,
somewhere.
you know,
Yeah, that's where
This is when you can
conversation is
shame
right now.
somebody. That's all I'm saying.
The question is, host person, do we want to do this conversation? Because that's where we are.
Yeah, hey, look, there's got to be at least one libertarian on the panel who really wants to discuss age of consent. Right?
Yeah.
Not
That
here.
was my title.
Not
I had that
here.
as my title because I was expecting more spice.
Well, you're not
I
getting
just,
spice.
no,
It seems like we're getting a little too chummy at
fine
this
with
point.
this.
So should we get to the next topic?
No, I think we have a lot more to go to in this topic. I don't think we've fully discovered the
We
topic
need to
yet.
farm this out a little bit further.
How old
What do
is
you-
your
what do you
girlfriend,
think-
Sprout?
What do you think?
I'm
Sprout?
married to someone who's 26.
What do you think, Sprout, about the allowance of child marriage in certain states, like especially religious exemptions and so on? Are you a fan of the idea that churches should be able to? Is it the Mormon Church? Right? They
Very-
can be 14. In
Very
Utah?
generally, no. I have like maybe one or two exceptions. One of the
Okay, what
exceptions,
if-
one of the exceptions I have is like if a kid is like, and when I say kid, I mean like 16, 17, is like diagnosed with like terminal cancer and they have a girlfriend. I think they should be able to get legally married if they've been dating for a certain period of time and then they feel like they want to get legally married before this guy dies. Then I feel like that's fine. But not to like a fucking 30-year-old.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. If there's like a couple of years in between, I don't give a shit. That sounds reasonable enough.
Yeah.
I think we all have
So
fun with that.
compassionate exemptions, is
Right.
what you argue for. Yeah, sure. Why not? Let a little.
I'm glad everyone agrees.
Yeah,
Time to
what's
move on.
the-
I told you it was getting too chummy in here. I was gonna have to break a coffee pot or something.
I mean, I tried injecting some shit into it, man. I said toxic masculinity, and not a single one of these chuds responded. It was crazy.
Yeah, that doesn't get me either.
Good.
Now you're saying we need blood.
Finally,
All right, fine. Let's
Are
fight
we
about
getting
toxic
cats consent?
masculinity. Yes,
Hey, I don't think I've heard Vivian drop the F-bomb yet.
What?
Amazing.
Are you fucking kidding me?
There it is.
I'm pretty sure I've said fuck several times. How could I not have said
Maybe
fuck?
I did. Maybe I did, but I'm just so used to
He
more.
just wanted to hear you say it again. Stop being baited.
Fuck, fuckity, fuck, fuck, fuck.
It's a fucking
Love it.
Tuesday.
So, the next topic, and thank you, Debate Queen, for that. That's what we need. Fewer fucks, more fucks. Considering the hardships of the pandemic on both tenants and landlords, should the government or some other entity compensate these landlords? What should be done to aid tenants in this situation? So, tenants say a 3-year ban on evictions kept them housed. Now the landlords say they're drowning in debt. So, nationwide, eviction filings have come roaring back since the bans ended, to more than 50% higher than the pre-pandemic average in many cities. According to Princeton University's Eviction Lab, which tracks filings in 36 cities in 10 states, in California's Alameda County, filings top 500 in May, compared to 65 in April before the ban ended. That surpassed filings that averaged the 300s before the pandemic in 2019. In Oakland, a city rich in Black history, some Black families who migrated from the South during World War II were able to purchase homes despite redlining and other discriminatory practices by banks and government. But a recession in subprime mortgage prices, followed by rapidly rising home prices and gentrification, pushed out many Black residents, and homelessness escalated. So now that these moratoriums are being lifted, and landlords are now drowning in debt, and people are being put out on the street, should we have more sympathy for the landlords? And should something be done for these tenants who have gotten at least 3 years of basically free rent? Let's start with Rich.
Let me. Shit. Rich?
I go.
You're muted.
He needs a minute.
Sorry, I had the wrong window up. Yeah, okay. So my first thought on this, I mean, to me, this isn't about compassion for landlords. Like that's not what it's about. To me, it's about like the sustainability of the system and the knock-on effects of like policies. And it comes down to this. If you know that there's going to be an eviction ban, and if you know it's going to go on for like long periods of time, when an opening comes available, you're going to be far less likely to like rent out your units to marginalized communities because you believe that they're going to cost you money. So unless there's a policy that like will absolutely compensate like landlords for like lost income whenever somebody can't pay rent, something to compensate for that, then this is going to create an incentive for discrimination. That's one of the like knock-on effects, like unintended consequences of a policy like this. I think doing this for like short periods of time when there's like a national emergency and when we know that we'll have the funds to like compensate everybody involved along the chain, and then maybe there's like some people who fall through the cracks or whatever, I think it's okay. Going for 3 years, like the longer a policy like this goes on, the more that sort of like discriminatory effect is likely to happen. And I think it would get very difficult for somebody who is like of the wrong persuasion, whatever that persuasion may be, along race lines, ethnicity, whatever, the single moms, whatever. I think what you want is for more housing to be available to those communities, not less, as time goes on. So it doesn't make sense for me for the for the ban to like go on for as long as it has. Doesn't mean I'm against the ban like entirely from the beginning in terms of during the emergency as it was happening, but we need a longer term solution than something that's going to just create more discrimination.
Okay, here's
Thank
the
you.
long-term solution.
Well, we will go to Viv next. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
We're
If you
doing
have a way you'd prefer to do it, like
I just do opening, so everybody gets to have
let
their
me
say,
go
and we
you.
get to fight about it. But you go ahead and go next,
All
because
right,
we'll go
okay.
corner to corner at this point.
So obviously, what I would like to see is these parasites have their fucking homes repossessed and then be like given to the people who need them, right? But okay, I'm not going to propose such a radical fucking solution here today. I'm gonna compromise. I'm gonna be nice. All right. I don't think that rent should be more than, let's say, 20% of the living wage in that city, right? Like, add all the shit together. Average cost of utilities, average cost of food for a 4-person family, average cost of running a vehicle, blah 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 blah, right? Versus like the versus like particular levels of wage depending on how good the house is, and it shouldn't be more than 20%. Shouldn't be more than 20% of your earnings. I think that we can set it at something like that, and if that means that the landlord cannot pay for the house, then the state can buy that house off of the landlord at a somewhat reduced market price to save them from going entirely fucking bankrupt, and then rent it out at a low rate to people who are unhoused or people who are in struggling with housing, people who are on low incomes, etc. I think that this is a way to slowly take housing into public ownership, such that it can be made available for all. I think that crises like this are opportunities for making big changes and making steps towards more equity.
Excellent. Let's go with Soyato.
All right, this is going to be so great. I'm going to pull a Sprouticus and read the part of this article you gave us as a reference.
Hell yeah.
Retiree, air quotes, Pamela Haley has paid property taxes, boo-hoo-hoo. She's 69 years old. That means that when the pandemic started, she was not retired. She was not of retirement age in the United States. And then I find her profile on LinkedIn. She's a realtor with Berkshire Hathaway. Boo-hoo-hoo. This person in Oakland, California hasn't been paid rent. I'm not going to cry for that. But I am going to say, yes, we do need some kind of compensation for non-corporate, institutional landlords. We have, giant institutional landlords and people who profit directly from the sale of property, like Pam here. Poor Pam and her 69-year-old retiree Pam. But yeah, we've got like individual homeowners who like upgrade to their next home, and so they rent it out. Maybe we have some relief for them. The reality is that we have the Payroll Protection Act, and that has been abused by so many corporations, like BlackRock, all sorts of corporations that are realty holding companies that were given money. So it is the reality that federal funds have already been shoveled into the biggest corporations who were not going to get a dime of rent. And all of the people who live in those properties should not be evicted for the next 3 years, in my opinion. We should be just flat out forgive the rent of anyone who has had their landlord received funds from the federal government for the protection of their rent. It was a scam, and I can't rant about that too much.
And naturally, the Ouija board is leading me toward Tiberius. How do you feel about this?
Yeah, I was waiting for this. Yeah, I'm definitely going to push back against most of the folks here. I really had a problem with the holdover ban, or basically where you couldn't evict somebody. However, I got at least like the moral foundation of it, right? We were going through a national crisis, like, it's bad enough that, people are having to either be locked in their homes depending on, what's going on, or, have only limited interactions, and then you're telling them to get lost out of their homes. So I can eat that one. The problem is there was really no compensation given to people who could really get screwed over by this. And as much as there are so many people here that like hate landlords and see them as horrible things and parasites and whatnot, I think that they actually provide a genuine service to people. They give people homes at a rate in which they are compensated for, and they take all of the burdens of having a home. I have no problem with landlords. And in fact, I'm a little pissed off with the fact that we kind of just shoved it up their ass and then told them to just deal. Yeah, they should be compensated in some kind of way, particularly if they can, give grievance to the internet, or not to the internet, to the government, that they actually got screwed over by a policy that the government instituted. I think that is far more just. I think that's far more appropriate and fair. because they took on the burden that we forced them into, and they should be compensated for that.
Excellent.
I'm doing so good at biting my tongue. Are you proud of me? I'm so proud of me.
Good job. Good
I said
Jack.
nothing. I just went.
Jack, on you.
Jack?
Okay, so as to dealing with the landlords, no, when we are talking about the moratorium that was put in place due to the COVID issue, no, this idea that they should be compensated for their losses under this is ridiculous. That is literally part of capitalism. When shit goes wrong, you lose everything. And guess what? If a lot of these corporate holdings and big private landholders were to have lost it, it went back to the banks. They would have went into foreclosures. We would have been able to buy them for pennies on the dollar, like people used to do back in the 70s and 80s. Before landlording became the next big flip it and fucking make money off it scam from the 90s onward. We have watched single family residences shrink as they are transformed into single family rentals. We have watched over $3 trillion worth of those single family residences be bought up by huge corporations that will allow them to sit vacant for years on end, eating losses because they know that in the end they'll eventually make more money when they can crank the rent up by 225%, as they have done over the last 30 years. This is capitalist no math. They understand how to play the long game, and now that we are allowing trillion-dollar companies to play in this market, they have all of the power, and we have watched the ability for the vast majority of Americans to own a home go out the window. So no, fuck them. They are parasites. Here's the difference. I am not going to sit here and say that all parasites are horrible, etc. There are parasites that are completely non-harmful. We can point to things like bed bugs. Bed bugs don't carry diseases, etc. You still don't fucking want them.
And Duck.
I'd say that with the system that we have now, there maybe should be some sort of compensation to the landlords, because I think a lot of people are forgetting that the landlords own the places that these people are living in. And why that's important is if any of these landlords start going bankrupt, someone's gonna buy that rental, and it's usually common practice to kick everyone out after they buy it to make it more valuable.
Excellent. Clyde.
She is sidetracked.
Completely fine. Go ahead, Vigilante.
Okay, so because of the fact that this article is specifically talking, or the examples that I gave are specifically mom and pop rentals and family investors, those type of landlords I would definitely say should be compensated, because they're normal people who just have the LLC in order to rent out extra houses and stuff that they have, or even rent out duplexes or triplexes that they are living in themselves. Now, if we were talking about the corporate landlords, the management companies and stuff like what Jack is mentioning, I would say they can go fuck themselves. We need to stop giving money to big corporations in general, not just in the case of landlords, but in the case of pretty much everything. So, but these are outside of what Scoto mentioned with that one person, but this is specifically talking about people who are just renting out their houses or extra houses. So these people should be compensated by the government.
Thank you. Debate Queen.
Shout out Bay Area.
There it is.
Yeah, fuck capitalism, fuck these landlords, and fuck the corporate overlord landlords too.
Queen.
Okay, they should not be compensated for jack shit. We need to strengthen tenant laws and possibly, do other things to secure these. I'm also with Jack here too, with like mom and pop, like people like that own residences. I'm cool with like doing that because, like, listen, I rent from like a local person who owns the house, right? Luckily, because I definitely couldn't like go get an apartment with a corporation because I got bad credit and I already got kicked out of one house. I've already got evicted out of one house. So you know what? You know how hard that is to find like a house, when you have an eviction on your record for something that like I couldn't necessarily control because I had a medical like thing go on and I couldn't work, but I was trying to like make sure that like I was making my rent and stuff. Okay. And there's been a time here too where I wasn't able to pay my rent, but luckily the state of Colorado has a way and funds to like help landlords that like if you are like people are struggling to pay their rent, you can like go and apply for this and like submit your past due records, and then your landlord gets directly paid from the state. Okay, they're back things. We need stuff like that to help local landlords, to help local tenants secure housing, because housing should be a human right. No one should be out here homeless just because of these circumstances.
Excellent. Sprout, go ahead and release the Bonkai.
I think that the entire I was somewhat against the moratorium on the evictions somewhat. I understood the need for it. I understood why they had the moratoriums. However, I also believe that the moratoriums were held on for too long, and I think that caused a lot of the issues we're having here today. For it to still be here for 3 years is absolutely insane. And so I think it's going to lead to a bunch of other stuff. And so I think that these I can't even think of the word, landlords are due some kind of compensation. They've had to pay for property tax. They've had to pay for repairs for the person who's not paying their rent. They've had to pay for all these things, and they're getting nothing in return. I think they are owed some kind of compensation by the government and told them they weren't allowed to collect money.
I'm going to go ahead and open that up to the panel. Let's go.
Landlord's too big to fail.
I think she's maybe.
What now?
Yeah, you're too big to fail unless you own one house and you're renting that one house, and now you have to pay for that one house all by yourself.
Okay, but is that where the money's going to? That's not where the money's going to. And as I described, it's
that's not where the money's going to.
Yeah, it is the
we should fuck over the little guy to try and fuck over the big guy. Well, the little guy doesn't. You don't care about
the little guy.
No,
is able
not
to
the
live.
Little guy.
They're able to survive with some basic assistance program, and I'm fine with that. But this is like per breathing individual, you get basic assistance, not for a giant corporation per property. You don't get assistance per property.
So,
can I just push back against Jack just a little bit? I don't think even think he's going to disagree with me on the pushback. But when you talk about all of these houses like being lost and being reclaimed and then selling for pennies on the dollar, that actually happened. It happened after 2008. And what happened is the pennies on the dollar benefited people like Steve Mnuchin, who was able to buy ridiculous numbers of houses and then sit on them vacant, just like you're talking about, and then like wait for a housing market boom so that he could.
You're correct, but this is why, because you and I have talked about this a lot.
This is why I don't think you are going to disagree or anything.
This is why I propose vacancy taxes. I'm not opposed to, because I understand my communist utopias cannot come tomorrow. Understand we live within fucking capitalism, so therefore landlords are a fact of the matter. So we need to make it a semi-functional system. The way you do that is I agree, but That's different. That's a different conversation.
It's not a different conversation because we're at a significant point of crisis, which means that there is a significant opportunity for change, and the policies that we institute today, right, don't have to be let's just fucking repossess all the houses or whatever.
I agree.
But they can be something that pushes us in that direction, right?
And I think
sets us on the road.
Yeah.
So,
let me finish my idea on vacancy taxes, and you may agree that that may be one of those steps, because I believe that if we were to institute vacancy taxes that were on a quarterly, cycle, you would disincentivize these large corporate holders who are doing the we're going to hold it until we can raise the rates because other people will eventually need housing bullshit out of these markets. You will get rid of the BlackRocks, you will get rid of the fucking AIGs, etc., that are holding $3 trillion worth of homes at over a 50% vacancy rate. And some of these vacancies have been vacant for over 7 years.
Yeah, I'm totally behind a vacancy tax. So I would say a vacancy tax that increases the longer it remains vacant.
Yes, exactly. And that's why I said quarterly basis, because let's be honest, a year, but the first year it will go up by like a 1 or 2% jump each time the tax goes up on each quarter. After a year it goes up again. It would have to be a sliding scale system so that you don't affect the mom and pop guys too heavily, because of the fact those are the landlords we want. I want people like my grandmother was a landlord. She was the kind of person who had people like my father and I working on these houses for free to work for her to get this done. We were working with the tenants. Hey, this is broken. We're going to have to change this out. What do you want, etc. We're already making changes. What can we do to facilitate it? That's it. That's the mom and pop, landlord of yore that people like kind of glorify within our society. The problem is they are very much the hyper minority in the market now.
I mean, one, they basically don't exist. And so
that's why I say hyper minority, less than 1%.
And two, even the mom and pop landlord, right, is a parasite. I'm sorry. Right?
Yeah, but not all. But as I pointed out in my opening,
I don't know who said Christ there. It's like if you take.
I mean, if you want to use this as a thing, like technically, wouldn't the tenant be the parasite because the landlord owns the house and then they're coming in and leeching off of the landlord? So I mean,
the poor laborer, such a poor.
Well, I mean, the tenant is the laborer, right? And the fucking landlord is taking the laborer's money simply because they own something.
I mean, it really just depends which lens you want to look at it through. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes.
Certainly. I'm sure, but
I would not view the bank as a parasite if I am mortgaging.
Damn, you're blind.
And getting the owner, etc. Well, but I'm using for this analogy. I would not view them as the parasite in that, because they're the one that gave you the money to buy the house and we're paying back that loan. The landlord is doing the same practice, becoming a middleman, using the house that he has got the mortgage on that you're paying off as collateral to get more money, to get more houses, to prevent the next person down the road from buying a house because he's able to get there quicker. This is part of the problem. They are parasitic in nature. But as I said in my opener, not all parasites cause diseases. Not all parasites cause rot. You may not want them, but you can make this a neutral set where it is not causing rot to society. I just
all I'm saying is that to me it just makes sense. To me, it makes sense that like the government called on these landlords to like stop taking rent, so therefore it would be in like the government side to compensate the landlords. And I think that compensation should include like clearing the debt of the tenants that were going through the crisis, along with everyone.
Well, I heard Viv wanted to say something. Okay.
I forgot what the fuck it was now.
All right.
Very good at
that.
Thank you. I wanted to say it earlier and I had it in my head. And then I got annoyed and it went.
absent that, I want
You're
to
welcome.
point out there's a great video that y'all should react to from Adam Conover that says, or the title is "The Real Cause of Poverty," and it talks about this system where we have continually fed money into the real estate system. This is something I've been theorizing about for many years now because I've seen all of these fucking boomers with their inflated property values just raking in the dough. And it is like, when you want to talk about the cause of inflation, it is not like, fuel prices or handing out money. It is pumping up the value of real estate. That is what has been priming our economic system in order to accept a greater flex in our daily spending habits.
You need to massively devalue that shit. You need to massively devalue the housing market by making shitloads more houses available for nearly free. Yeah. That's what you should do.
In my town of 800,000 people, when a home is literally $1.4 million, that is basically what you've got to shell out to get a home in Seattle. And the tech salaries support it, and that created an enormous flexibility in spending, and that's what's been driving interest rates in the U.S. is all of this, and it just causes poverty on the bottom end. So
same thing happened in San Francisco too.
Yeah.
Same thing. And I literally witnessed it myself, right? I've lived in Bay Area, I've lived in San Francisco. So like I know what the fuck this shit is like. You know, like y'all don't understand living in a house with 7 other fucking people. Okay,
I do understand.
Like someone living in your living room, someone living in your kitchen.
This is a common experience.
Imagine living in a bay of 30 men.
That shit.
Like I don't know what you're trying to say. Imagine living in a bay of 30 men.
Okay, that's different. That's the military.
Just because you've been in the military, dude.
I'm just saying. I'm just saying. If we're gonna have living with all these people, it's competition here.
I won't get it. That doesn't count.
One at a time, guys. One at a time.
The average person.
Being in the military is not
like I've witnessed what it's like to have affordable rent, right? Like I lived in a little tiny studio apartment, right? When I first moved in there, rent was maybe like $1,100 a month. By the time that I moved out, maybe like 2 to 3 years later, they wanted $1,700 from me. Okay, then I also paid out $1,500 for rent. That shit is too much for a little tiny place. That shouldn't even be more than like $800.
Like, and to put this into perspective, it doesn't. The economy of scale is more drastic in these places, Ducky. I know a person or knew a person who was living in San Francisco a few years back. They were a single mother of 4. They were making over $700,000 a year and living paycheck to paycheck because that is literally just how much it costs to live when you need 5 bedrooms.
Yep.
Yeah, that's
Ducky living in Kansas, sitting in a 2-story house that he pays $600 a month for. That's
nice. I got lucky. Like I said, I struck out real lucky, because I found a person who owns the house and everything. But my rent still goes up every year, but usually by $100, which is cool. But my utilities are all included. So I don't have to necessarily worry about my water usage or my electricity usage or my Wi-Fi usage. All of that is nicely included in the price of my rent. But not everyone gets that luxury. That should be stuff that should be included in renters rent, but it's not, and then when it's not, it's even more you're thinking about it's a $1,200 rent, but then you have another $200 in expenses, so you're really shelling out $1,400 a month just to live. That sucks.
So here, let me shit on liberals a little bit as well, right?
Jesus fucking Christ.
One problem
Vigilante has been trying to talk for a long time. 1 second.
Who has?
Get fucked.
So Jack, I did want to jump back to your vacancy tax thing, because while a vacancy tax will be good, it I want to propose something else. So instead of a vacancy tax, because that could be easily circumvented, I'm pretty sure I've heard you mention before when we've talked about this. Putting a tax based on the number of houses that somebody owns and is like renting out. And then having it increase with the number of houses that you own or residences that you own.
See, you can't actually do this form of sliding scale, because then literally what you have just done is cause our economic collapse, because you have literally just killed every major bank that is U.S. based. And I'm not even being hyperbolic in this. You have created an economic collapse in less than 10 years.
So I'm going to point out.
I mean, as much as I like the idea in theory, the math doesn't work.
I do want to be clear. That was proposed by Ancom. I was just bringing it up.
Yeah, no, the math just doesn't hold up. Okay, Ty, hey, I fought for you on that one, because like the math doesn't hold up. As much as I like the
bullshit anymore.
Listen to my reply, because the thing is like that idea. If you were to do that form of sliding scale, okay, so now you get rid of all the corporate holders. Well, as that tax starts to hit, that tax is now hitting the banks that have taken it from all those corporate holders. As those banks fail, now the U.S. you have literally just created not a domino effect. You created the ultimate snowball to hell effect. Like we
Oh, I like when you started explaining it. I get it. I wanted to bring up
and as much as I like the idea in theory, it just doesn't work in math, because we have interests. We don't live in a world without interest. This doesn't work. At least not until we change.
Can I please, for the love of Christ, break up this left wing circle jerk? This is awful.
I'm
Let's do it.
I'm not even gonna go centrist on this. I'm going full right wing on this one. Like, yeah, all right. I'll pick on Jack first, because he said the thing that like made me like have an aneurysm, and I was a little surprised by Jack. So first up to Jack. All right. So the big thing you got on is like, hey, the capitalist.
Why were you surprised?
Because usually he's the rational communist, okay?
I am rational. I'm proposing
not what you're not. All right,
I'm proposing reform, not nuking the system.
All right, so here's the thing that you said, and if I'm paraphrasing you incorrectly, feel free to hit me. You're like, all right, the capitalists can make a lot of the money. They play the long game well. Absolutely agree with that part. The problem is that you're like, hey, this is capitalism. When the market goes to shit, guess what? You got to eat it. I would agree with that if it wasn't for an extra market factor, being the United States government or, a state government coming in and fucking with the market in the first fucking place. You can't say accept the consequences when you ethically have a standard.
I can, because what I am going to say to this is, they were only on a moratorium of eviction. The moratorium on that is now lifted. If they want to evict and start regaining their losses, they can. This is something
3 years later.
But here's the thing. When you have multiple houses, which is the people you and I are talking about in this situation, we're not talking about the mom and pop people weren't hit by this mostly.
I don't care if they have one house or if they have 100.
Yeah, but the bigger people, the difference is those banks will allow them to use those homes as collateral to receive loans to fucking give them that fucking stopgap through. We have created economic systems in place of capitalism to allow them to do this. I do not like capitalism. I am simping for capitalism here, because this is one of the few things that they have done right, even though in this fucked up system, we've tried. Very inadequately, but we have tried to create stopgaps that don't require the U.S. government or any other government to step in and fix everything every single time. As much as I would like it, I mean, you know my views, etc. Like, as much as I would like a more proactive role from the U.S. government, right now with our current infrastructure, the U.S. government is not equipped to do so. So I propose both a top-down and a bottom-up to meet in the middle solution. This is protecting the bottom, protecting those people who would more than likely lose everything. Instead of just losing everything, they might have to sell one house to cover the losses on the other four.
Okay.
Does that make sense now? At least,
Yeah, no, I get where you're doing because we've done this argument or we've done this conversation ourselves, right? And I guess I won't. I guess I will place interest here for a minute. The thing that I gave, yeah, I know, right? Give me a second. I'll revert back. I'll bring back the evil side, right? Anyway, well, when it comes to what Jack was going for, number one, there was a part where I've made it very clear. We already have a land use tax. It's called property tax, at least to make sure that you're doing something with it. On top of which, there is a level to where I think cities need to have that conversation of a vacancy tax. Not because I overwhelmingly love taxation in any form, but because of the fact that they have a super marketed effect to where you have a lot of foreign money coming in, jacking up the price of your rents, particularly in Seattle, because foreign investors want a physical asset that they want to tie their money to. And so you will have entire apartment blocks, entire condos, or, even 2-bedroom homes that are owned out of somewhere, China, Dubai, whatever, and they go vacant forever because they're just it's just capital flight, basically, long and the short. Yeah, I don't actually oppose metropolitan, institutions.
We see you
activating that. And actually the Canadians are getting on board with that. And as much as I hate most of what the Trudeau government has flagshipped, this is one of the few ones I actually agree with him on. Vancouver is unlivable by every stretch of the imagination. Ottawa's kind of getting there too, or Toronto, sorry, is getting there too, just because so much foreign money is just jumping into their
you weren't wrong with Ottawa either, by the way. All three are guilty.
Yeah. Anyway, so there. Okay. The other two things where I can go back full right wing. Number one is that there's a point where I just say, if you're living in a city and you do the math and you're finding out that you're barely making ends meet, even though that you, even though that you have this job that pays $60K, that's on you. I'm tired of city fuckers complaining that they have $1,200 rent or $1,500 rent or $2,000 rent just to have this, cozy job that they have that they commute 40 minutes to, when you can literally move to Kansas, have a job that pays you, 35 to 40, but your rent is $600 a month for a 2-bedroom house. I'm really over it. I'm really fucking over it.
In Arkansas,
3 bedrooms.
Though, our housing market, especially for rent, is
1.5 acres.
awful because I don't know if it's like that in Kansas, but in my hometown, if you wanted the shittiest house possible, it was still $2,500 to $3,000 a month, the same that you would pay for.
Fuck, that is different. From
Yes,
but wait, in Arkansas, you're now talking about the Ty, my level of professionalism. If I were to go get a job at the top paying restaurant in all of Arkansas, and I were to be paid the most money they have ever paid somebody in their entire existence, I would be making $24 an hour. That is the pay to cost of living here, even though this is the cheapest state in the country to live in, that metric is closing heavily.
Yeah. I mean, when I was managing the hospital at the veterinary hospital, I barely made $16K. Arkansas just has it's the Wild West because there's absolutely no protections for workers. You can fire someone for anything, and I just
It's right
can I just pop into Tiberius's thing real quick? That I think this is probably why we should honestly ban foreign investment in America, in the sense of no one should be buying property, land, or anything if you're not an American citizen. And I know that's probably really out there, but I think that's a way to honestly protect Americans and our system of way of living. Because if we're just allowing someone from a foreign country just to own to own a condo that could have honestly been rented to an American who needs fucking housing, why the fuck are we doing it?
Please let me have this. I need to scream. Okay, look, I respect where leftists are when they have a soul, and they're like, hey, look, I'm trying to look out for the little guy because the big guy is there and he can beat the living dog shit out of you, hook, line, and sinker. Okay, I get that. But every time when it comes to these economic conversations, this is a wonderful example of where leftists just completely fucking lose me. I'm cool with being like, hey, you know what? We have a problem with foreign money coming into our country. And so instead of banning it, why don't you channel it into something far more productive, such as, bonds that are giving out for building roads? Why is it that you guys always just go to ban for anything you don't like and actually level the fuck up and channel the resources that people are willingly giving you into something that is productive? This is why I'm a capitalist.
Ty, I hate to break it to you, but it's the right that's trying to put those bans in.
Well, that's
No. It's the populace. It is both the right-wing populism and left-wing populism is trying to do this shit. However, left-wing populists tend to jump the gun on this far more than the right-wing ones do.
But here's the thing.
Oh, fuck off.
DeSantis is doing it right now.
I believe
so
that,
is
but I
Texas.
Show me the left-wing populist fucking putting this into legislation.
Well, that's the thing. You guys have no power, thank Christ.
Sorry,
It's not in this
That's
country.
right,
part of my point.
Yeah, but
So
okay, so no, I was going to
jumping
push
into
back
it.
on Debate Queen and say, well, I disagree with your point of banning it. What I would say is we should ban them buying vast tracts of land. For example, the Chinese government, through multiple corporations and openly within their government, owns about 10% of the farmland west of the Rockies.
You should just ban anybody from fucking doing that, though.
Oh,
Yeah.
no more landlords! Yay!
You should just ban anybody from buying that much.
Yeah, even more homeless people. Let's go.
Okay,
Yeah,
where
no
would you
kidding.
put where would you put that limit?
Oh, I
Because
forgot. Landlords are the real workers. They're the ones
hold on.
really doing us
No.
a service.
They are doing a service. I'm not going to act like they're not.
They're not
Let me
doing
have
it.
this for a
Are
second.
they not letting people access these houses at a
leeching.
cheaper rate than what they would be?
No.
No.
Usually they're more
It's a-
expensive. That's the one thing I will absolutely go off.
They're driving the cost up. What are you talking about?
Okay, then how many people are out there with the money right now ready to just buy a house?
Wait.
So that's part.
I got $50,000
Do you know-
in debt
do you know- do you know what would-
so that I owe for my education. So I ain't
Exactly.
buying the fucking
Do you know-
house
do you know what
anytime
She's
soon.
able.
I'm
She's
very
able to
afford
buy
my
the. She's
fucking
able to be in the
Okay.
house she's in right now
Okay.
because someone was able to let her rent it.
Forget that. You got a paper wet rebuttal, okay? Do you know what would really help people be able to afford a fucking house? If they weren't paying more than the typical mortgage in rent.
There we go.
Yep.
It's almost like, there's cost benefits to being an owner versus being a renter.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
capital breeds more capital. Yeah.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Owning shit gives you power over people who don't own shit, right? So maybe it's a parasitic fucking relationship for you to.
That's
own
why we need communism where no one owns anything.
Right, because there's nothing that's actually, at risk for being a landowner or for being a landlord, right? If the furnace blows up,
at risk, but if you have enough fucking capital to have a second fucking house, I don't care.
it's almost like that. What makes capitalism a successful
If you have enough
system
capital,
worth having?
if you have enough capital to have a second house, you know what? You should buy that second house. You should give it to somebody who needs it.
No, fuck.
Go.
Everybody always goes like how would you change the world if you're a billionaire? Look at all these. Whenever we criticize billionaires, they're like, oh, they're such philanthropists. They're changing the fucking world or whatever. If they actually wanted to fucking change things, do you know what they'd do? They'd fucking build houses. They'd build shitloads of fucking houses, buy up shitloads of land, and then give it away.
Yeah,
this is why I hate idealists, because they have
until
this idea
Mr.
of like
Beast
how they
does
would.
it, then everyone's gonna be mad that he did that.
Right, true.
Okay, but you know who's going to be mad? The people who are like, oh my god, the value of my house has dropped. I don't care if the value of your house has fucking dropped, right? You've got a house, right? You can have that house. You can live in that fucking house.
Look,
But then what if you're gonna move?
God.
What if you're gonna move and you're underwater on the house though at that point? Because the value of your house has dropped. Your loan is then above the value of your house. You are literally losing money because you have to move.
That'll be fixed in a generation, won't it?
All right. Look,
you get to live in that
So
fucking
stupid.
house, and if you can't live in that house, right? If you can't afford that house, hey, guess what? Somebody's just
this is just pure mitigated
How
envy.
many of us are going to vote for universal right to
You
housing?
know.
somewhere else.
Right to
right,
housing
like-
is one of the topics for LD, by the way.
This seems to be the question at hand is like, should there be universal right of housing?
Absolutely not.
No, you want homeless people because without homeless people, the housing market does not fucking function, right?
No, I
Another
want
reason
look.
to
I'll fucking bite the bullet on this one, right? I want homeless people in the same way that I want starving people and I want poor people. There is an association of how people get fucking goods, okay? And you can either do this equality shit, which every time it's been tried is a fucking disaster, or you can accept that, you know what, sometimes things just aren't fair. Some things are just equal. Guess what? We have the most prosperous societies, even to this day, no matter how much you hate capitalism, that any people have had in fucking history. Like, seriously, the fact that I can just go out and buy a goddamn PS4 and sit in my air-conditioned house and all that, nah, I'm not buying this shit at all.
This is a literal lie, Ty.
I don't
right?
have air conditioning in
when
my
you-
house, so I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, good.
So how do
True.
you measure this prosperity, right? You can say something along the lines of, oh hey, like the GDP of the United States has fucking risen, but gross domestic product is measured essentially by the amount of transactions that take place and so on. So the population's been growing. Obviously, that's going to fucking increase, right? The way you measure it is like what you can actually do with the fucking with the money that you earn from your job. Okay, and in that sense, significant numbers of Americans are poorer now than they would have been in the 1950s, right? Spend more of their wages on rent, on utilities, on running a car as a percentage of the wages that they have than they would have done in the 1950s, okay? So don't tell me that actually capitalism keeps driving us towards greater fucking prosperity, because what it has done is reduce the cost of reduce the quality of living for the average American over the course of the last 80 fucking years.
Okay,
line go
so
up.
No. Let me split this.
Line
all
go
right?
up.
No, on
Like,
one
we're
hand,
America rich
on-
now.
all right. No,
We have
on one
more
hand,
people
I
than
will
ever.
I will
don't care,
concede.
that's a bad thing.
No. On one hand, I will concede the argument that, you know, there is an entire class of people in this country that are not doing as well as their predecessors, right? We call them millennials because they have been walled out of assets, right? When you look at things versus like the 1980 or 1990 prices, everything's doubled in all the critical things that we need to be basically quote unquote a successful generation, right? Housing used to be 3 years average salary. It's now 6, right? And I had a long conversation about this before. I think you all know my stance on this, but I'll reiterate if anyone needs to. I agree with that. There is 2 problems here. Number 1 is that it relates to these old fucks that we call the boomers, because they ran a system that was hyper competitive to the point where it broke itself in some regards, right? They had incredibly low commodity prices, they had incredibly low interest rates, and that worked for them in some regards, and they were able to accrue a shitload of fucking wealth. On the other side, though, is that the millennials have not held them to any kind of standard. Yeah, we can bitch all damn day long about voting power and whatever, but when it comes down to it,
How do we hold the boomers to a standard?
how do we hold the boomers to a standard? We get rid of Social Security. Tell them to pay for their own fucking shit.
Oh, that'll
They
run
have
it, Rich. Oh,
paid
that'll
for
do
it.
it.
They've paid into
No,
it.
they haven't paid for it. They
Lives.
paid for
Okay,
their
so-
parents' retirement, and now we're going to tell them we're not paying for theirs if they want to hold all the fucking wealth at 70 to where we can't afford a house. It's either you sell the house and get in something that's your own fucking size, or you keep Social Security. Which one do you want?
I don't understand how
I
that you implement that.
What?
Means testing
How-
Social
how-
Security. That's what he's talking about.
No,
No,
don't
no,
mean
I
test
mean,
it. Just get rid of it. Tell them to go fuck themselves. If 70-year-olds literally want to be CEOs still and still keep us out of the jobs,
Wait.
and on top of that, make it to where all of their assets.
You
sounds
act like
like
every
a
old
five-time
person in
conversation
America
that
is a
earlier.
CEO.
You're
Alright.
just talking about
Hold on.
anybody who
Hold
owns a
on.
home here. You're talking about kicking fucking 80-year-old pensioners out of the home they've lived in 40 years. Like, you call us heartless and fucking ruthless. Like, holy fucking shit, dude.
Social Security is not going to pay for someone who has that
He's
type of
memeing.
lifestyle,
He's
though.
gotta be memeing. I don't hear him say this kind of stuff usually.
There's Social Security fraud, though.
There's
Yeah.
fraud, but that's fraud.
It's a
Yeah,
tiny
we
bit.
can.
Yeah, but you
No, we can get
made
into
the
it.
claim
No,
that
like
people don't do that.
the reality here, and straight up, and like this is not a meme, is that my generation has failed to hold their previous generation to any kind of standard, and now that generation is stupidly fucking wealthy, and they bitch about us about how we don't want to work and we don't want to do anything when everything is more expensive. For them, it's fucking easily expensive.
It's just how you're framing it, man. You're like framing it like this is some moral failing of the millennials. Like, you failed to hold
It
them
is a
to
moral
account.
failing of both the
You don't
millennials and the boomers. It is a moral failure on the millennials in that we recognize that there's a problem, but we don't actually.
We don't have the power. The boomers have.
No,
the
fuck
power.
that. We are the number one voting bloc in this country. If millennials in this country would get off their fucking ass and stop worrying about like how we're going to institute socialism and actually get towards the.
You're a fucking idiot because that just isn't how voting works. Right?
No, it is just like
I feel attacked right now as a Gen Y person.
One at a time. One at a time. Who wants to speak? Hands up. Who wants to speak?
I
want to finish
my
this.
hand up, but I'm sticking it up.
Yeah, go ahead and finish up, and then we'll get to Rich. We'll get the debate queen. We'll get the vigilante.
Okay. Seriously, any identity that you can put in is usually at some level a cohesive voting bloc. Now, we usually don't see an entire generation become an active voting bloc outside of the boomers, and that was kind of just the fact that they existed, where they were 50% of the population all at one time, right? When it comes to where we are as millennials, we need to recognize that the boomers have absolutely and utterly fucked us in literally every way that they possibly could. And the worst part is that. And all we have to do outside of cohese around, hey, look, the boomers fucked us, they need to pay for it, is that we need to just look at our fellow generations who are in the middle of this to go, hey, look, you can be on this too. Gen X is absolutely going to get on board with this because they're going to have to pay the taxes to pay for all their retirements. And they can't afford that shit either. Zoomers can't even afford, like, we bitch about how we can't afford anything. Zoomers are still working at $12 an hour at Wendy's. They can't afford shit. Yes, we have the voting power.
How do you propose to mobilize this enormous voting bloc that you're talking about in the face of the fact? What I was going to say, this is your delusion, in fact, that America operates as a fucking free and fair democracy, right? How do you mobilize that bloc in the face of the fact that the people with all the fucking money are the boomers and they spend that fucking money on lobbying, on voter suppression, right? And because we have less money, not only are we affected by those attacks on democracy from the people with money, we're also in a situation where people are finding it harder to find time to even engage in kind of politics, right? Because they're just fucking working all the time, right? Or they don't have a great fucking education and they're just stupidly fucking poor. Okay, there may be more of us by number, but America is not a fucking free and fair democracy. It is a quasi-plutocracy.
I absolutely reject this. Like, the reality is we've seen the numbers. My generation doesn't vote at near the consistency or the rate that our predecessors did. Yeah, and the problem, like, no, I'm going to blame us for that. I'm not going to cop out and be like, oh, we can't do it. We can't afford it. Like, we don't have the time. No, fuck that. If we believe in a democracy, that is our number one fucking priority, is that we show up to the polls. No, I'm 100% by that. Like, let's move Veterans Day.
Answer my fucking question.
We had that conversation recently.
In the face of what I have just presented to you, and you have fundamentally basically agreed with me on, in that we have much less percentage of our group that votes, right? Mm-hmm. How do you propose to motivate? It's not enough to sit here and castigate and say, well, I guess the millennials are just fucking lazy. No, we're all in a really shit fucking position. We recognize it. We want to do something about it, but most people don't know what they can do. So what are you going to do to motivate them? How do we do that?
Well, look, as bad as I am, and I'll hopefully absolutely admit this is where I'm like actually trying to do that. I'm trying to say, hey, look, millennials, we're fucked. We know we're fucked. And to the point where we know that we are not getting a deal from the people who are supposed to lead us, protect us, or whatever, we have to mobilize against them. We have to say, look, we're going to have the millennial party. We'll co-opt one of them. I don't give a shit. But they do not have our interests at all. I'm fine with having a conversation about how we can let them retire while also having, something for us. But we have to acknowledge that they are the enemy. Like, if there is any enemy this country has, isn't some minority here, isn't some minority here, it's old people are fucking everybody who isn't literally over 65.
There's no disagreement here, right? You're just fucking preaching.
No, I'm saying, like, that's how I have to. The only way I can do that is spreading that and just saying that personally, is that we all have to mobilize around that.
Okay, so we have some other people.
That's all I can do. That
is. We seem to be in agreement.
I know that's all you can do, right? But it's not enough. right? So
It has to be enough. That is the only way a democracy is functional, is that the people do coalesce.
Not functional. That is my point. But also, right, you're speaking to like 12 people on Kai's stream and like however many on your stream, right? You're not speaking to
I'm not talking to the audience. I'm talking to you guys. Like, fuck the audience.
But so you have to concede effectively, right? You saying, well, that has to be enough. And it clearly fucking isn't, because if it was, it would have happened already, right? You have to concede that the environmental and social and economical factors, right, that keep this block from being able to push out the votes of the boomers are so fucking deeply ingrained that actually we have to address some of those rather than just saying, hey, millennials, get off your asses. Right.
Well, look, if you want like a more like I don't know, like acceptable way to do this, I admit I am not a marketer, I am not a PC enough, and I am not into sales, right? So I'm the worst one to carry this call. But this is how any democracy works. You have to mobilize people, you have to get them to go, and don't get me wrong, we're on agreement on like, hey, the boomers just show up and whatever. But when I do go out to talk to my peers and I ask them, hey, when's the last time you voted? What are you voting on? What do you care about? It's bad enough that they're talking about some bullshit like guns when it's really not an it, right?
Literally killing is the number one killer of fucking children.
Okay,
yeah,
there we go.
We're going to talk about fucking guns.
Well, guess what? While we're talking, fuck you. While we're talking about guns, we're gonna get fucked over by the boomers. Good job. We lost.
Let's hold up for a second. Let's hear from Rich. It's been a minute. We've been letting this run. Go ahead, Rich.
I'm going to make an analogy here. This is one of the reasons why you can't do this sort of generational thing. Because when you talk about like economic differences between races or ethnicities, you're talking about groups where generation after generation, these inequalities like get worse and worse and worse. And these things like fall apart. And one of the reasons why you can't talk about gender in the same way is because men and women are often like in the same household and so share income. And so like an advantage that one gender has doesn't really pass along to the generation in a way that makes it grow. And so that's one of the reasons why those things are different. It's the same thing here. If you're telling people, young people, oh yeah, fuck the boomers, you're saying fuck your grandfather, right? You're saying I want my grandfather to lose his house. And also all of that wealth that my grandfather has is going to be passed to me when he dies, right? Or to my parents or whatever. It's generational wealth that moves along. So you're not going to be able to convince people that they should screw their grandparents, right?
Debate queen
is
hold on.
It's not okay.
Debate queen is after. Let Rich finish.
But there's a second.
Wait. Let him finish. Please.
Yeah, there's a second part to this argument that I'm making. If you can object, I promise you, if you object to that, you'll object to the next thing that I'm saying. Because how all of this applies is that if you were to look at the way Social Security works now, all right, the 10% of people over 65 are under the poverty line. Without Social Security, it would be 38%. So we're not talking about a generation of CEOs here. We're talking about a generation where inequality is also rampant. There are many people like at that age level who are extremely poor, and you're talking about like punishing them in order to get at the others that you're actually angry with. None of that makes any sense.
No, I will entirely blame this entire generation. And if you want to put it this way, they lost their mandate. They absolutely screwed over their descendants on an entire level, right? Because it wasn't just the elites that did it, right? Those evil rich people. No, it was their entire voter base. They voted for Reaganomics that shipped all their jobs overseas. They voted for a bunch of
all of them did.
Most of them did.
No. It was the older people. No, the older people were the ones who listened to Metascare and voted for Democrats. It's just that the Reagan youth outvoted them.
Yeah,
so the elderly of their time, the elderly of their time were the ones that opposed Reagan. It was the Reagan youth that you're complaining about. But
yes, I am. That's
not 100% of
basically your parents.
100%, I agree.
Yeah, it is my parents.
That's
literally what the option. No.
And if I can interject, honestly,
yes, please do.
It's not just, you're not saying just fuck your grandparents. My grandparents were part of the silent generation. Okay. Like you're saying fuck my mom. You're saying fuck my uncles, my
You
aunts.
damn right I
Right,
am.
right, okay.
Damn.
So it's not saying your grandparents, because you could give a fuck care less about your fucking grandparents. You're saying fuck your fucking parents.
Like my grandparents
Okay.
more. What are you talking about? Like,
Okay.
no, well, yeah, no, this is an issue with the parental generation because they have absolutely failed. And the part is that we still act like they're not horrifically doing so. We still
Listen,
raise these.
I get that. I get that. Just for the simple fact that, like, listen, when I was growing up, working multiple jobs, my mom was like, "Why can't you just get another job, or like, why can't you just get a full-time job?" Not understanding that the climate after '08 was so bad that there were no full-time jobs. I was just working multiple retail jobs. That's all I've done for nearly 16 years of my career, was working retail jobs, including working for a major tech company. Like, that shit all like sucks, you know?
Right.
But
Right,
like
so-
at the end of the day, like, it's us that needs to take power. It's us that needs to take the initiative. It's us that needs to start running for offices, or needs to start stepping up, because it is damn well time for our generation to hold our power. But
I
we
don't
don't.
look.
This is the thing. Nobody's
yeah.
disagreeing with that, right? This is the
Yeah.
thing that, like,
Yeah.
Ty failed to engage with, and I don't know if it was like deliberate or he just didn't get what I was saying.
No, I got what you're
it's
saying.
that-
Like, we're just not on the same
it's-
page with this. Like, and I'm
which
sorry to
is-
cut you
which
off.
is fine,
So-
but it's
Right.
it's- so the fact, like I said, the fact of the matter is, like, this mobilization is not happening, or it's happening too fucking slowly, right? And so in addition to what you and Ty propose, okay, and I think Rich gave some good reasons as to why, like, some of Ty's rhetoric might not get through to some people.
Oh,
but
well.
in addition to trying to mobilize people to be more political in your generation, we have to address the causes of why they're not, right? We can't just put all the onus on the people. We have to say, like, there are economic and social barriers to entry into politics, right? And if we don't recognize that, then you'll just be tied screaming at the fucking pub to your friends about it, and you'll never get fucking anywhere.
I mean, like, I
Right.
want to run for office.
So-
like, I do.
I need
just
to finish
because,
a
like,
point
it's
towards
important.
Rich.
But anyways, go ahead, love.
I appreciate it. So look, I think most of us agree, like, we millennials as a generation need to do better. We're probably going to disagree on exactly how to do that, because there is a level where I have to be like the prick here and be like, you know what, millennials aren't showing up, and we're losing because we're not showing up to the party. And like, this is the thing where I'm pretty sure I'm just like almost autistic on, and I get it. I get that I just don't connect. But for me, voting and the process that we have of participating in these conversations all the way up to we get to the voting booth is literally some of the most important shit that we will do in our lives, right? Like, as much as, like, this is on the parity of what we do with raising our children, to me, in the regards that our votes matters, from the tax system all the way up to how everything does. And the fact that we have more people who watch the fucking Super Bowl than actually vote blows my goddamn mind. I don't get this shit. What is wrong with you?
You're not, okay.
You
What
vote
is
on your
wrong with
TV.
that? This is the conversation that we actually need to fucking have, is why is that the case? Sorry, all you're doing
Right,
is
so-
bringing the point home
Yes.
that it is the case. We need to analyze why it's the case and address
Right. So the things I can say that unfortunately do not favor us is that the number one thing that makes you more likely to vote is that you feel like you're an invested voter, right? So you probably, like, literally top 3 things that'll make you vote. Do you have health insurance? Do you own a home? Do you, what was the third one? Do you have a kid, right? All 3 of those will, like, in tandem usually mean you're a voter. Problem is, our generation is literally the people who are, like, struggling like hell to do that. And so we're in the circular fight where me and you don't agree on, right? Where it's like, all right, do we start with the voting, or do we start with, like, trying to secure those assets? And I'm just of the opinion that we have to start with the voting. We have to start with the mechanism of power that is the most available for us to use, because as much as it is to take that whole day off, to get that vote in, it has way more power.
It's not just a whole day off, Ty. Okay.
Yeah.
It's not.
Wait, that's just. Yeah, right. I get it.
It shouldn't be like that.
Strengthen the Voting Rights Act.
No, it's not even okay.
Yeah.
I'm not even talking about actually going out and just doing the vote, right? In order for you to go out and vote, you have to be politically engaged. You have to have the political will to actually go and do that thing, which means that you have to have spent time engaging with politics, right? Whatever it is, local, national, whatever.
Support
right?
high school debate programs.
True.
and
No,
they make
like-
me laugh, but it's just.
Well, it is one of those things
So
where,
we
like,
need
look-
to give people that time. We need to get them engaged in politics, right? That starting with "Hey, your vote counts" doesn't pull anybody in, because most people don't believe that, and I think for very good fucking reason, frankly, right? Because most people's votes don't count unless you do it in very, very large numbers, right? But
either large numbers or very, very targeted, right? And like, all right, just so we don't
politically involved in absolutely every way, not just voting.
Right. So, two things here. One, like, democracy is not a decision-making process; it is a way of life. I absolutely believe in that. It's not just about that final vote on election day. It is about, talking to your neighbors, talking to people like you guys, which is literally one of the reasons I do this shit, is I'm a firm believer in our democracy. I don't have to agree with you, but, like, sharing those ideas and either you saying, hey, I like that, maybe Ty has a point here, or Ty's a fucking jackass, stay the hell away from him, is literally my role as an American citizen or even a world citizen to participate in, right? So, tabling that for a second here, I get you, Viv, like, there's a lot of barriers in front of us. Sorry, I'm kind of losing my point here. I get that I'm like kind of rambling on like a rave madman. I do. All right. I am not the person to sell this. I'm not cut out to be a politician. I'm cut out to be an administrator. I'm a nerd, right? Find me someone who can sell this where I don't come off as deranged lunatic, and I will put money behind them. I don't have a lot, but I will give them my time and my patience. I pledge that to you all. Right.
I tell you what. I've been asking the question. Right. Here's what I say is the solution. Is not like just talk to your friends and neighbors and shit. It's actually get out there and start fucking doing shit that is political in your local fucking neighborhood. Right. Like and try and get other people involved to do it. Okay. Fucking protesting, fucking engaging in food drives, doing all the fucking shit, right, that helps improve the material conditions of people around you. Get other people to help you, because other people will help you when you help them, right? And then you're politically engaged, then you're politically active, then you can say, let's go down to the voting booth, because it's really not much compared to what else we've been doing, and people will actually fucking listen. But if you just go down to the local bar and go, hey, do you want to vote tomorrow? You're going to get far less takers than if you go down to your local fucking food drive and say, hey, we should all probably vote on this particular local topic that we care about, right?
I don't 100% disagree with that at all, or 100% agree with it. There's a lot of nuance I can pick into there, but I'll put it this way. Building communities is absolutely a start.
I think you and Vivian really need to like have a stream and like get into it for real.
Yeah, we can. I'm sorry to like co-opt. Like, look, I'm sorry we're co-opting this, and unfortunately, like
it's great. I don't want to cut it off.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm bipolar raging a little bit here too.
Other voices that want to be heard in the process of this, especially Rich. Debate.
I still want to reply to Rich, though. I never got. I
know you do.
I'm sorry.
So,
we gotta let this flow.
So let me just kill the Rich point if I remember any of it at all still left, and that was just like, all right,
kill the Rich.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, hold on, before you do that, I was just going to say, it sounds like what Ty wants to do is institute the carousel from Logan's Run, where when you hit a certain age, everyone just gets murdered, right? And then we can make sport of the people who run and like don't show up.
All right, I was thinking like the midsummer thing where you just jump off a cliff.
All right, so now that we've made my point, I have done a disservice to what I was saying, so I will like get off of that. What I will simply say to close out, at least where I was, is that look, I understand that it's my, either my grandparents, but more particularly my parents' generation that I'm having a pissing fit with, right? I acknowledge that completely. I own it, actually. The issue that I have here is that, yeah, there's a lot of us millennials that are looking like, oh, 10, 20 years down the line, we might have this really nice inheritance. And I just want to scream up the top of my lungs because I'm like, look, what you're telling me here is that you're not going to afford a house, you're not going to afford your kids, you're not going to afford half the things that you might even need in the hopes of getting inheritance 20 years from now from a generation that has clearly shown me demonstrably that they are incompetent. From the economic things that we've seen just in our lifetime to the political fuckaroo that is, why are we having Joe Biden and Donald Trump and it's probably going to be a round two? Like, this generation is so absolutely fucking incompetent. They should be labeled enemies of the state. Like, seriously, guys, what the hell? Don't trust them. They're not going to have that inheritance for you whenever it comes around. It's not. I don't know how to sell that. I don't know how to market it. Please find me someone who does, because we all know this, right?
Nursing homes, the way that we have it set up, that if you can afford a nursing home / that kind of care at once the need becomes necessary, if you don't have the money, you have to put like all of your money in your house and everything going towards that nursing home versus like actually using your insurance and Medicaid. It's, oh, well, you've been paying Medicaid and Social Security, so we could take your house and all your family's inheritance type thing.
So look, Ty, here's the thing. Whenever you're talking about like how like we can't, as like our generations can't buy houses and stuff like that. Yes, this is a problem. One, so getting rid of Social Security is not a solution to that, because of the fact that, one, that's also going to affect us whenever we get old, and because of the fact that a lot of our jobs don't pay us enough in order for us to be able to save up the money to be able to retire. That's going to cause a problem for us. The thing
Again,
is,
I'm like sorry. Go ahead.
Look,
I'm fucking stroking.
Look, I get what you're saying. Like, neither of us like boomers, but the situation is more of, this is why we need to push for things like better wages. This is why we need to push for things like better social programs, things like that. It's to even that out, because without just fucking screwing over the fucking boomers to where they just fucking die and jump off a cliff like we were joking about, that's the only way that wealth is going to get redistributed back to our generations. And in the process, we'll also help homeless people, we'll help starving people, and things like that as well.
All right, I'll split a couple of these up, but I'll make it as short and simple as I can. Number one, I will absolutely go for supporting better wages for people, right? I don't think redistributism works, because every mechanism that it has tends to let it go the opposite way. So that's really easy to fuck up. But when it comes to like getting wages, 100% behind unions, 100% behind ESOPs, all that shit, right? Let's fucking go. And I will happily use the arm of the state to enforce that, right? The other side of that is that like people are like, oh, like if we mess with Social Security, it won't be around for us. It's not going to be around for us. Like, y'all do math, right? Like, literally, the boomers will drain it to the point where it will be insolvent. We will not have. No, it's not. Like,
no,
it's basic math.
They are sucking it out right now.
It will not be there.
On that one.
Yeah, it will not be there for our generation.
That also goes to the point that I said of like, we need to focus on reforming our social programs and making better social programs. Like, we need to fix Social Security. That way it's not fucking just gone by the time that we get old, because Social Security is a very important thing, because even a lot of jobs nowadays don't have pension programs. Yeah, we have like fucking 401ks, which will do very little for us because of how little money a lot of 401ks throw in. But we don't have pension programs, so we don't have that kind of stuff like we used to. So we outside of like pushing for companies to bring back pension programs and stuff, this is stuff that has to be solved through the government.
Some of it might have to be, some of it won't. I'll just tag this real quick, Rich. The parts that I think will help a lot if you turn Social Security into a sovereign wealth fund, hell, just the interest alone is going to make some bank, right? And you're going to extend the longevity by significant amounts. Norway has proven the point on this, right? On other things, though, is that I absolutely disagree with you with pensions. Pensions actually seem to be the wrong way to go. What you want to have is programs like ESOPs, to where you're basically given a little bit of stock as part of your paycheck, and by the time you get to 60, 65, you can cash out, where the company will basically buy back in your stock, and that is going to be your retirement funds. But also, 401ks, provenly over the last 30 years, have been far more effective at generating revenues than Social Security. Like Social Security is actually really
this
bad.
I will agree with you. Where I will heartily and vehemently disagree with you on is pensions, because back when we had union-backed pensions, it was not an issue. When that issue switched through union breaking to corporate-backed pensions, that I'll agree with you on. I'll agree with you on that wholeheartedly. Union-backed pensions back in the 60s and early 70s, before the union breaking finally collapsed the system, was actually a very solid system. It was invested within the market to gain more money for the people it was invested in. It was done through a blind trust, so on. There was a lot of things that used to be done right that we fucked up.
I've seen the math on some of that.
Yeah.
I'm not 100% sold behind like the union-backed pensions, because it looked like it
We'll
was
do
going to
that
drive
another
Sears.
night.
Right. Basically, long story short,
Yeah.
it looked like it was going to drive Sears and Sullivan.
Well,
So, Aiko, go ahead, please.
There are individual situations that sort of break the overall narrative of what these sort of private investment things are like. Obviously, the big plus on Social Security is that you can count on it, right? There's no risk. But with for instance, here where I am in Dallas, there was a firefighters pension fund that invested in local real estate and stuff like that. And then this one bad thing happened in this real estate area, and the firefighters just lost their pension. Just the whole thing was just lost. There's no insurance coverage of any of this. There's no way for the government or some larger entity to account for these things. And this happens with individual retirement funds all the time. And I agree that on balance, if all you do is invest in the S&P 500 over a period of 50 years or whatever, that's at least historically, that's been a very good investment. But past returns are never a guarantee of future returns, and that's the difference between any of that. I agree, you would probably make a lot more money with these private investments, but the problem isn't the amount of return that you get. The problem is the risk. The problem is what happens when you have a large group of people who are I know I memed about Logan's Run earlier, but the fact is when these people if these people lose this sort of thing in terms of risk, they're not the ones. I mean, they're not the only ones that pay the cost, right? It's their millennial children and grandchildren and the Zoomers who end up having to deal with grandma because she has lost everything, right? Because the grandfather usually dies first. This is what you're. That's why it's not just a marketing problem this issue that you're having. It's also a real policy problem where this supposed fix for this hurts the younger generations. Because the older people, I mean, they're not going to suffer for very long. They're going to die in a few years. But then their children and grandchildren, who had to pay for their care, and it's not cheap. Believe me, because I'm doing it right now with my mother. It is not cheap for that kind of care, and it could go on. They call it end of life care, but it can stretch on for years. Jimmy Carter's still not dead.
True. Look, I'm not going to act like there is any easy situation here to fix. We are basically going to have to choose millennials, and I mean this. I firmly am now convinced that we are going to have to choose between our prosperity, if we can have any at all, and watching the boomers die in basically a comfortable way.
The carousel.
I mean, I don't know about the carousel, but I'll put it in this regard. I do firmly believe
Futurama.
Huh?
Suicide views from Futurama. Same idea.
That's what the carousel is.
I've done myself a disservice greatly because we are memeing about anything that I've kind of put forward at this point. So I clearly this sucks. But I will just continue to harp at least a little bit just for content, I guess. I firmly believe that millennials as a generation are gonna have to choose between themselves and their parents. It's just gonna have to come down to that. And I know which side I'm on. No, I will fuck over the parents' generation before I let.
But they
mine slow in
don't. They
oblivion.
don't. They. I mean, they end up like their parents end up like they end up paying for afterlife care end of life care for their parents and grandparents. Actually, they'd much prefer to write a check to put them in homes like that than they would be to have them in their own homes. Often, that's another problem that we have in this country. But
let's not get started on that tonight.
But
actually,
all night.
I'll bite that as my closing. Is that like that might actually be the only way we fix this? Is like we might have to do multi-generational homes for a little while. Which is like, you know what, mom or dad
I think
is
that's
living
great.
with you. Like I think that's actually
that
the
should
real.
be the normal rate. That should be the way things. That should be the norm.
I don't know about that.
Instead of warehousing, the old in these like facilities that are just gonna artificially keep them alive like for years and years.
Right. Now, on one side, I hate extended nuclear
And lonely.
families. On one side, I hate extended nuclear families, but on the other side of that, no, like the what we do, where we just institutionalize, basically old people to die for the last 5-7 years. All right, that's more immoral than anything that we do by a country mile. It's just we literally suck our wallets dry at the same time as that we abandon our own family. Like, all right, don't get me wrong. Maybe this country, we need to have a conversation that all of the generations hate each other and allow this to happen, but maybe we can change that. Like, I'm cool with that.
I mean, then there's families like mine where there's reasons.
Look, I get it, dude. Like, I don't have a great relationship with my folks, and like,
I know I was just kind of bringing it back to a little levity. But no, I mean, the thing is we do need to come up with these answers. You're right, and the thing is it is going to be somewhere in the middle. This is why I have tempered my views so much from my extremely radical black bloc youth. I like the stuff I used to do. I look back on and I go, yeah, that may have affected some change, but I'm lucky I'm alive today.
We all did, or at least I hope we all have. I hope we all have had that, that thing we went a little too far that we had to learn from because we were young, dumb, and whatever. But I'm out of time, and this should be at its close.
Okay,
anyway.
so I was gonna say we were going to open in about 4 minutes. We're gonna do it at 8:30. So if anybody has any closing statements on this topic,
I'll make closings. Yeah. I'll make a closing statement just to hopefully not break everything. All right, so I've done myself a disservice because when you're getting memed on, you know that you've done something wrong. But this is something that I'm more passionate about than I can actually be like logically sound on. Because you know what? I am a millennial who would like to have children. I am a millennial who, could benefit from a great inheritance at some point in my life. There's a lot of these things that I look at in my own calculations. But when I actually do the numbers in my head, and you all can tell me as millennials if you agree with me, those of you that are out there, does any of the math actually work out for you long term at all? Because every time I run it, it's an absolute disaster. I'm probably not going to have Social Security by the time I'm old enough. I'm barely going to be able to put anything back for retirement unless somebody just croaks. Affording a house, I have a house and it's like I'm in a really good position, but if I need to have a family and upgrade, that's off the table. I don't know how to finance that without like a massive jump in income. Every time I basically do the math and I do not have a 30% increase in my income, or that I don't have, something that I just can't guarantee in any facet, I don't have a future. And I know almost every single one of you have that problem too. That has to change. Whether it's at the ballot box, whether it's how we build communities, I don't care how we do it. Well, okay, I do care to some level, right? Like ethics are a thing. But if we don't have a future. We don't have children, or our children don't have a future. And it ends with us. We're the end of the empire. That's the burden that our generation has.
The most black pill closing ever. Let's go.
I'm like, no, dude. Like, I'm hopeful. I really am. I think we can do it. That did not
sound hopeful at all.
No, look, I think we can do
it. You absolutely have a future. You don't need to own a house to have a future.
He's hopeful that we can kill the olds. Yes.
So, debate queen. Any words on this?
I somewhat agree with Ty on the fact that as a Gen Y, fuck being a millennial. High key, I'm just memeing. But seriously, being Gen Y has its burdens. It really does. Because I would also like to have children if someone would, if I could find someone to have children with in the future, but there's also a lot of people within my generation, our generation, that have had children or, are having children, who could also benefit from, good social networks and social benefits like like good, of course, universal health care or universal like we have like pre-K or like daycare. There's just so much that like we could like go and do to make sure we become prosperous, but we don't, and that's the part that sucks. Because if we had all those things, I think that we would increase our numbers and our birth rates, and we would like be able to compensate. But also, too, we also have to realize that also immigrants are the ones who are also giving birth to a lot of Americans too, and are kind of trying to prop up our birth rate. But besides that, a lot of us, like in our generation, because we have like all kinds of debt. Well, it doesn't matter whether it be educational debt, medical debt, like credit card debt, whatever it is. This debt really does hold us down, and from being able to like be like our parents, or like be able to like do the things like our parents have, or like travel the world, or like go do things that we've always wanted to do. Go jump off the Eiffel Tower on bungee cord with a bungee cord. Like stuff like that, like
Or without a bungee cord.
Not without a bungee cord, because fuck that shit. No.
And Rich,
So yeah.
oh, sorry.
I actually wasn't trying to speak because I'm going to come into the open. I was just saying when it sounded like Ty was leaving, so I was waving. But also, though, I do want to make sure that Soil sticks around for the open for a little bit because I have a question for him.
Okay, just a bit.
I appreciate that. So, outros? Anybody want an outro?
I'm not.
Yeah, I'm
leaving,
probably gonna
but
hop
my-
out. Yeah.
Okay, since you're gonna hop out, I want to do a little bit of an outro before you go, because
Okay.
I'm gonna next time I'm gonna start smacking motherfuckers if you guys can't do one at a time. Like come on now. Like
This one got heated.
Like
I can't contain the rage anymore.
Everybody had skin in the game.
I let
It was
this
entertaining.
go off about landlords for about 30 minutes
Listen.
there, and I just was about to die.
Here's what's gonna happen, Jack. Here's what's gonna happen if you're too much like one at a time, then someone's always just gonna push you out of their way because they're not gonna stop talking. You're like, oh, I gotta follow the rules.
No, I said one
Otherwise,
at a time.
Daddy
when there's
Moderator's
six
gonna get after me.
No, I said
Like,
one at a
but you
time when
understand
there
what I'm
were
saying.
6 people talking. Like when it was 2 people going back and forth, a little bit of overlap was fine.
No,
when it
I
was 6
understand that.
people talking at once, it was just noise.
No, I understand that, but I was like, sometimes it feels like I'm actively responding, and then everyone else is trying to talk too. It's like, no, I'm actively responding, and then yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm not getting
There's
just at
issues.
you. I was just saying it before you took off. That was all. Like just so
Okay.
everybody was present for it.
Okay. Anyways, I'm the Sprouticus. You can find me at twitch.tv/thesprouticus. Fuck all the millennials. Fuck all the boomers. All right, I'm Gen Z, so that's where I sit. So fuck the millennials. Fuck the boomers. But yeah, I appreciate it, and it's been a great night.
For you go,
Siblings,
have
we're
you been
your older siblings. Come on.
have you been ordained yet, Sprout?
Not yet. No.
No, you still at preacher school.
Yes, I'm still in my master's degree program.
Wait a minute, they don't ordain you before your master's?
Somewhat. You're given like a calling essentially, and they verify the calling, but you're not officially ordained until you've graduated college.
What church are you with?
I'm with the Baptist Church in Indianapolis.
Fuck me, dude.
Most excellent.
And you're doing a what is it? Did you say a master's in theology?
Master's in I can't even think of it. It's not a master's in theology. It's a master of divinity. It's a MDiv, Master's of Divinity.
Right. Okay.
So
Yeah,
so
when
if
you
I
said
remember
calling,
correctly,
I was thinking manifest. I'm like, oh, you're getting callings like manifest, like
No, like what you're called to do. Yeah.
okay,
No.
so Masters of Divinity, that gives you a little bit of comparative analysis between religion, a little bit of like especially between Christian denominations, and a little bit of Christian history, correct?
Yes. And knowledge of olden languages such as Greek, Hebrew. Yeah. Greek and Hebrew are the two big ones.
I need to learn
Okay.
this for other reasons.
All right. So we're going to go ahead and if anybody else has an outro or anything they'd like to add, going to go ahead and go into open.
All right.
All
So
right.
now I'm going to drag change box.
Don't do theology. You come out an atheist.
Yes.
Hey, Pyro.
Okay, I
hey,
just had a
Change
real
Box.
Yeah, Pyro.
because I know Soyadal doesn't want to stay very long, so I just want to ask my question.
Oh, I got dragged off. I got you.
Soyadal, tell me how worried I should be about the Zaporizhia power plant.
So
Great, why?
Zaporizhia is a nuclear power plant in Ukraine, and I'm messing with my camera. Okay, it is a nuclear power plant in Ukraine, and geez, what was it, like 6 months ago? Russia rolled into it with tanks, and I covered that live. It was kind of exciting for a bit, and now it's a big snooze fest. So it is a 6-unit reactor, pressurized water reactor. They have all been cold for months because of the military conflict.
I've seen
around it.
reporting that says towers 5 and 6 are still hot, not totally hot.
Okay,
but
so
hot.
right, so that, if that's true, but I don't think that's true. But at one point,
Okay.
you're right, they were, because they needed to keep them at like low standby to keep the water going, to keep everything cool. And I think at one point they went completely cold. Maybe this isn't right. You can check out Mark Nelson, aka Energy Bance, on Twitter. He's an expert in all of this stuff. And
Recently, they shut down the last one.
okay, yeah, that's what I thought.
Okay.
So they're cold. So anyone saying to buy iodine is an idiot and they're wasting their money. Iodine 131 has like what, a week half-life or less than a week half-life. So you're wasting your money if you buy potassium iodine to protect your thyroid. That is a waste of money. It was useful for atomic bombs, Chernobyl, stuff like that. That's it. So what could happen? Russia could like literally mine this nuclear plant. They could put mines all around the reactors. They could literally blow up the reactors, blow up the ponds where the pools are.
They mined the pond.
And if they cause a minor contamination in like a 5-mile diameter, 10-mile diameter, that's what we're talking about. We're not talking about contaminating Eastern Europe or Turkey or anything like that. This is
Okay.
It would be a local contamination. That's probably not even going to happen because it's just stupid. Why would you, if you're going to take over this area, you would not want to contaminate and waste that resource. If you realize you're going to lose the war and you really want to fuck it up and decimate their energy economy, yeah, you should blow that up, you should contaminate it, but you probably don't want to, because that creates a lot of international attention, causes a lot of like Article 5 level shit.
So
Like
the
a
reason this has
brief
come up in the news recently is only because Ukrainian intelligence came out and said that Russia is intentionally going to melt down those 2 towers. But of course, it's a war, so there's the propaganda on both sides.
Right.
Yeah,
But this is
that's
like
what
the
they're
Ghost
saying.
of Kiev level
So
shit.
someone that we kind of trust, she said that they have found that Russia actually has charges on a reactor. I forgot where she said it was. I wish she was here today for the panel.
It's this one.
Yeah. And that they are prepared for that to happen.
I believe
And so,
it. And if
yeah.
they're basically scuttling
gonna
that
dip
resource.
Take care.
Yeah, I just
I'm the debate queen. Everyone can come follow me at the debate queen. Like I said, I do panels and I do Fortnite, which I'm about to go play. Overlord, if you ever want to play, you know where it's at. Yeah, so
Making
yeah,
connections tonight.
and come
Yeah, good luck.
follow me, come support me. I still got 2 more founders badges available for the people who my top 10 or my first 10 subscribers. So come get a founders badge and VIP. But yeah, thank you for having me again, and peace and blessings to everybody. Salams.
Peace to blessings
Salam.
to you as well.
Go get,
Peace.
that,
Thanks
go
for
get
being
that
here.
fucking chicken dinner, Queen.
Yeah, what?
Chicken
Get that
Go
dinner.
get that fucking chicken dinner, Queen.
That chicken dinner. Well, you know, I like to gobble. Hey.
Hey.
All right.
Oh.
Bye, everybody.
It's mixing metaphors.
Yeah, the chicken dinner is PUBG, anyways. That's,
Is what?
chicken
PUBG.
dinner is from
PUBG.
PUBG. Winner chicken dinner is a PUBG.
Yeah, I know. I'm just fucking with you. You know.
I know. I'm just fucking with Viv for showing a boomer moment.
Speaking
Well,
of
you know,
boomers,
the
I still play
line-
mandatory put in the
Bye.
home.
As far as I'm aware, regarding
Jack, fuck you. I still play PUBG.
Yo, Pyro, your hair's looking fire, buddy.
thank you.
Agreed.
As
Is
far
that,
as
like, is that like a new hairstyle, or do you usually have it tied up? I can't even fucking.
It's usually tied up, but let's not derail the panel about my hair.
Well, it looks good, man. Fuck
Oh,
you.
Yeah, but there's several bald people here, and like I don't want to be offensive to my like hair challenge.
I have solar flare.
Hey, now, don't get me
Solar
wrong.
flare is my
back,
friend.
My
Back a
hair
few years-
challenged people don't need to like
No.
be
Back a-
punished by discussions of my luscious, beautiful locks.
No. See, you're good on that. Years ago, I would have given a shit because I used to have long hair. Now, fuck that, dude. I have had so many people go, you know what? I prefer bald man. I'm like, all right, cool. The long hair thing, they're not into that shit because it's too much upkeep. They look at us, they look at the long hair guys as frou-frou and crap. Like, it's silly, but they do that shit. It's
Wait,
weird.
dudes or girls?
Dudes and girls both will look at the long hair too like that. It's really
Oh, fuck off. Everybody's different. I love long hair. Long hair.
Okay, let me rephrase that. Here within America, that trend seems to be happening.
Well, I
Also,
just go ahead and remove the advantage of hair,
Doesn't matter to me.
and I accept solar flare and space duck.
I'm pretty sure I lost 3
My
cents.
hair's about halfway down my back.
Listen,
At
Ty.
least
I am the
at least
ultimate
I'm not a
centrist.
boomer.
I am bi. I'm dating an NB, so I can be lesbian or gay at or lesbian or straight at any time. So like ultimate bi. I'm the ultimate
my God.
centrist.
What is this?
Well, so
degeneracy?
but the thing is I think the oldest one in here is Rich. Even he's not a boomer. We are all Gen X or younger.
Yeah, no, that's why I'm on the panel, right? Because there's not a fucking boomer here.
Word.
Yeah, because none of them know how to use Twitch.
Yeah, exactly. That's the best part. That's the best part of. No, but like that's the
Twisted
best
ain't even a
part
boomer.
about. Yeah, but like that's the best
Yeah,
part
he's-
about
he's
being
like
young
40s.
and shit. Like when technology comes, we learn how to use it, and we
Late
don't
40s.
just sit
We need
there.
to get more boomers on these panels so we can bully them.
Why would we do that? No, because like we look. Hold up, time out. To get back onto like the topic. Then they're just gonna outlaw the fucking internet because Tiberius and like Icor were both kind of right, where it's like
They already
fucking boomers vote. You
already
fucking.
tried to do that. They already tried to do that in both the UK
Wait a minute,
and
wait.
the US. They already had like
Yeah.
you guys had the online online harassment bill or some shit, right? Like
No,
internet fucking
time out. I'll tell you what that was. That was just shit that happens when boomers like see something they don't like. Get a bunch of boomers on here, insult them, and call them old, and say half the shit y'all were saying. Internet will be gone tomorrow. It's back to fucking Telegram and fucking
you know what they
what's the fucking
you know what they
what's the
fucking
fucking
had over
the Morse code,
Telegraph.
like Telegraph and Morse code. That's what we're gonna get.
I'm just
Get
glad
boomers
we're
on
over
here
our
and
fear of
insult
our
them.
robot overlords.
Our Conservative Party gets so much fucking shit on Twitter, right? They'll just like turn up, they'll post on Twitter, and there'll be like a million fucking accounts underneath them just going "fuck off, Tory scum," right?
Viv?
And so they tried to pass the online harms bill to stop people
Viv,
from
can
being
I
able to-
explain?
They
Can I
actually put Twitter dogpile in the.
Hold up, can I
legislation.
explain something to you as an American? As a land of the free democracy. I don't care. You're talking about a political party and you have an unironic king of fucking England. Fuck out of here with that bullshit. Fuck out of here with that bullshit. You can't talk to me about a democracy when you got a king mob, dude. Like, nah.
Come
I'm an
all right,
overlord.
there's
I'm a,
so much shit here.
I'm totally
my man rode up to the palace in a gold fucking chariot, and you guys are talking about, oh, we can't. No, what about the pot? My dude filled potholes with sand to bury his dead mom, and then put
You're just
that
fucking
shiny
jealous.
shit.
You're just jealous because we got history. That's all I'm saying.
Why would I be jealous of that? We rule the world now. No one remembers your rinky-dink island. We could seize you as a state and a protectorate at the same time if we wanted to. But guess what? You're not Puerto Rico. You're not useful. You have a monarchy. Why would we want that?
I'm glad we're
Wait,
not
what's
Puerto
our
Rico.
use
Hey,
Puerto
Hawaii
Rico?
had a monarch
At
too,
least
and we
we
took
have a
them
fact.
over. So
Okay,
that's
calm down.
nothing to
Come
say
on,
we can't
people.
take over England.
Back
Yeah, we could definitely hold up.
subjects.
To answer the question, like, I don't know what the fucking use of Puerto Rico is. All I know is like a fucking 100 years ago, some fucking dudes in some white chairs said, you know what? That's ours now. So like,
Pyro, I share something.
It's
Actually, Puerto Rico got sold to us by Spain.
The troubles that I'm facing in my nation, and you're like, I don't care, bitch. You got a king, Lamau.
yeah, you got bigger, because you got bigger troubles, bro. You're talking about leftism and you have a king.
The king is the least of my fucking troubles.
I'm fucking with you. I'm fucking with you. You know how I am.
Lies and slander.
Where's Beckett? We need the anarcho-monarchist in here.
Oh my god.
Anarcho. I believe in anarchy, except for when there's a king.
I was gonna say, Beckett told me this morning like what the problems are in the UK right now.
Sorry, what was that? Beckett told you.
Yeah, we talked about it.
He told you all the problems in the UK.
All the problems.
Because like
all the problems, every single problem,
every single one.
Do that in under 3 days.
Well, see, Mrs. Berkshire lost her cat, and the local police wouldn't help her.
Shut up, Pyro. I want to hear this. What do you tell you?
Discussing the details of the NHS alone would take a week.
Motherfucker. Let us
about it's something with the rivers. It's the fact that they use concrete in rivers that it's actually catching a lot of stuff, and it's causing a lot of erosion to happen. My ADHD memory has no recall. I just
sewage into these rivers. What the fuck do I care about some concrete? Beckett needs to get his fucking priorities straight.
Well, no, they're like backing up because of it, and these are the rivers that like we're fishing in and we're breeding them, or you're breeding them in. That was the issue because he's in the environment sector. Like he would have talked out of that, and like that's I think how it should be, because I don't think that you should be talking out of your ass out of like things that you don't know. But like,
listen,
you actually
lost
read.
the Empire Sunset.
I do occasionally read it. That's true.
Yeah, but like you're not like saying dumb shit out of nowhere. So.
Look, the main problem
Man,
with
I
British
like
right
this chick.
now
She
is
knows
the
what's
distinct lack of dentistry, okay? There's like two teeth per three people, okay?
Actually, I think you will find, motherfucker, that the United States has significantly
I
worse
am a
dental health than
motherfucker.
the UK.
The woman I'm dating right now is a mother.
No, there's a difference between Americans can't afford the shit we have versus we just don't have it. Like, there's a difference. Like, we can't afford the good shit. We got good shit.
The Brits can't afford it either, buddy.
Yeah, y'all don't even have it. That's why y'all come over here to get it.
All right. Is there 86 memes here that I can engage with, or am I going to bed?
I'm going to start a round
I thought you were
sign-offs.
going to bed. You said goodbye fucking ages ago.
I'm going to sign off right now. My name's Soyatl. That's Seattle. Take out the C, add in some soy. Broadcast every Sunday, 11 a.m. Pacific, where I do the Eco Monitors channel live. Also Wednesdays, sometimes an extension of that show. I've fallen off. I had some great drama coming to talk about in my personal life. Maybe someday, sort of. We'll see how the settlement goes. It'll be some fun times. Woo, mysterious promos. Let's go. Anyways, that's me. I broadcast a lot of places, and I hope to continue to do so in the future. Peace.
See you.
Hey, I'm out of here.